Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round and with it the season finale of the UK Sim Racing Community's Multiclass League Season 3 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and sponsored by the Virtual Racing School of VRS. We have, after 8 weeks of racing, made our way all the way to our final destination. For today is round 9 of 9 and we're here in the United States of America, particularly in the state of Michigan, for the historical street circuit around the city of Detroit. It is none other than the Belle Isle Park circuit. The circuit from which it takes its name, of course, from the park within the city limits, is a circuit that is no longer used for the purposes of IndyCar racing and many an other discipline, including IMSA's GT3 and Multiclass series, to name one of many, but it is a circuit that will stand the test of time in terms of its fantastic racing action that's presented over the course of its extensive 30-year history. A circuit spanning only 2.35 miles and consisting of 14 corners, the one core theme about this circuit is its numerous road surface changes over its distance, making it a very difficult circuit to get comfortable at, and with that lack of comfort, consistency becomes hard to achieve, and therefore, with the walls looming large as well, it only takes one small mistake to see a race victory suddenly squandered all the way away. And when we do have 3 championship crowns still to decide today, out of our 5, 2 have been settled, and we'll talk more about them shortly, but with 3 on the line and plenty of other questions to be answered, well, it does mean that we are in for a thrilling round to conclude our season campaign. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this broadcast live from Circuit Side, available on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure, both of them from UK Sim Racing's media channels. The first one on YouTube. Indeed, all you've got to do is go to youtube.com and search for UK Sim Racing or UKSR, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. Alternatively, you could be tuning in via the UK Sim Racing Twitch channel, and that's at twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing. Welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch as well then. However, regardless of what channel you tune in via, you're going to have the same broadcast available to you. There's no preference, but one thing that is for certain as well, there'll be no preference on the commentary either, because in the commentary booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britney Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll bring you all your racing action as it unfolds as we bring the curtain down on what has been an absolutely thrilling seasonal campaign. But as we get ready to roar into tonight, well, let's tell you a little bit about the season so far and where we stand going into this round. Because as we can see, looking back at our calendar, we have made our way around the globe, whether it was the season opener in Portugal for round number 1, or the doubleheader in Italy for rounds 4 and 5, separated by a mid-season break week, or last time out at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps on the 25th of May in Belgium. We have been to an absolutely variety of venues throughout this season, and where we come all the way back to the United States of America for our 4th American track of the season, with the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle. The other has been the Long Beach Street Circuit, so we're not unfamiliar with street circuits in the US of A, having gone to the state of California previously, and we've made our way northwards to the state of Michigan. We can see Canada from this circuit, funnily enough, a little bit of trivia for you, or as it's been a second visit to California for the WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca, or of course the state of Georgia for the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta. But regardless, we are here now for the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle Circuit. And as for this circuit on the 1st of June, well, what does it look like, I hear you ask? Well, here's a circuit map to explain, and as we can see, located in the limits of the city of Detroit in Wayne County of the US state of Michigan, it is a rather iconic circuit in terms of its layout, 14 corners, many of them being at low to medium speed. However, it's not without its extended straight. The run from turn 2 down towards turn number 3, and also the run out of turn number 6 through to 7, albeit winds to a degree, but both of those runs being extensive in terms of their width and allowing for 3, 4, perhaps even 5 wide, should our drives all be at the same time together on circuit, particularly in the opening laps and over the race distance. We should say a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just for the simulator, but also the fantastic track maps that come with the simulator. And well, it is a very flat circuit as well, with very little elevation change, which is what you would expect perhaps over the course of a street circuit. But with the lack of elevation change, it does not lack the trickiness of its corners or its road surface changes. Whether it be concrete, asphalt, or a whole mixture, it does mean that it's a circuit that offers very little grip to drives over certain sections. But as we come into tonight, then a quick reminder of the rules, because we can't go racing without them. And as we can see, car setup-wise, much like the entirety of the season, it's an open setup series with fuel loads restricted based on car class as follows. In our GTPs, we allow 80%. In the LMP2s, they're allowed their full fuel tanks because they are the thirstiest with their V8 engines. And the GT3 class, it's 60% because they've got much larger fuel tanks by comparison. Qualifying-wise, a close qualifying format shall be used, with drives having 4 flying laps available, and we will see our drives also have the out laps, so it technically becomes 5. As for the race shall commence via a double-file rolling start, with each car class separated by a 5 to 10 second gap as managed by the class pole sitter. We should point out there is no separation of the GT3 AM and Pro class in the fact those are driver classes and not car classes, so therefore they'll all be intermingled together based on how they qualified in amongst each other. The race shall start for all classes when the GTP class is shown the green flag. There's one mandatory pit stop for fuel. Changing tyres is entirely optional, albeit they are changed at the same time, so I can imagine some tyres will be changed in the pit lane, particularly those left-hand side tyres. Each driver has one fast spare available. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points, and all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race. Now, once again, thanks to the Virtual Racing School, or VRS, we do have another giveaway to wrap up the season as well, and we will be giving away competitive subscriptions from VRS to our competitors and to you guys and girls, our viewers. However, only for our viewers on YouTube due to limitations, so therefore, if you're not tuning in via YouTube and you want to be part of this giveaway, you will need to pop into the YouTube broadcast. Now, in terms of our giveaways, what's available today? We do have a 3-month subscription available, and that will be a raffle draw after all the racing concludes from any driver who has raced in all 9 rounds of the championship, regardless of their class. The 2-month draw that's available, that's our second prize. That will be exactly the same, albeit we will exclude our 3-month winner, so that way it's fair and one driver can't take all the prizes. But indeed, any other drivers who don't win the 3-month subscription and they've raced in all 9 rounds, they will be eligible for the 2-month draw. And as for the 1-month subscription draw, well, it's for you guys and girls in the YouTube chat. All you've got to do is type VRS, but hold your horses before you do so, because we need to turn the giveaway on. So give us a brief moment and that giveaway will get underway. And in fact, we will very shortly kick off the VRS giveaway in the YouTube chat. And I do believe the giveaway is now underway. So if you do want to potentially get your hands on a 1-month VRS subscription, be sure to type the letters VRS in capitals all together as a single word into the YouTube chat. That is Victor Romeo Sierra for the Virtual Racing School. Now, as we come into tonight, with this being a championship concluding round, we need to look a little bit ahead, of course, as well to what's lying in wait. And well, before we make our way down to circuit side, we have recently announced at UK Sim Racing that we will have a full-up season after this, and we will be returning to our GT3 League. Indeed, we alternate from season to season with the iRacing schedule, and what this season having the Multiclass League, we will be switching back to purely GT3s for the 2025 Season 3 iRacing campaign. And well, what's to be expected then in Season 15 of the GT3 League, our highly popular and highly successful league? Well, firstly, we do have the regular 10-round format with 4 driver classes and 60-minute race rounds. However, alongside our multiple drivers' championships and also our team's championship, we have something new for this season. We've been listening to your feedback, and we've also been keeping an eye on how we can mix things up, and we're going to be introducing in the second half of the season what is known as the UK Sim Racing Challenge Cup. Now, what exactly is that? Well, if you're a driver who's perhaps not able to make all of the rounds, but may be able to make the second half of the season, or somebody who may find their interest wanes a little bit over the course of the season, perhaps looking for something to hunt for if you're not leading the overall championship of your respective class, well, we see the Challenge Cup introduced, which will run alongside the class and teams championships for the whole season, but the Challenge Cup will only be for the second half of the season, for rounds 6 through to 10. And all drives will be mixed into a single championship where you earn points from finishing position within your class. So therefore, you'll be entered into that automatically going into the second half of the season, and you could come away with a monetary prize there as well. And there will be monetary prizes available, I do believe, to all championships, whether it be in the teams championship, the overall drivers class championships, and also the UK Sim Racing Challenge Cup. All 5 rounds in the second half of the season will matter most for the Challenge Cup, whereas all rounds of the season will matter for our overall drivers and teams championships. So that's going to mix things up. It's open setups once again, and it will follow the official iRacing schedule. So you've got an absolutely huge array of circuits which will be taken on, ranging from the likes of the season open, I do believe, at the Daytona International Speedway. We also head to Brands Hatch for round number 2. Round number 5, we head to the Virginia International Raceway's full course, and we will be seeing the season out with round number 9 at the Silverstone Circuit, the Grand Prix layout, and then we will have the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit playing host for our season finale. So an absolutely huge array of circuits used by GT3s in the real world, and well, it'll get real in the simulator in the UK Sim Racing Season 15 GT3 League. And as you can see there, a cash entry there of £18.50, but still, enter in the cash and you'll be in for one of the premier racing series around the globe. And well, we look forward to seeing you on the grid, and we'll give you a reminder a bit more about it later, including how you can potentially sign up. Albeit you can see there in the bottom left hand corner, you've just got to go to the UK Sim Racing Discord, that link on screen. But coming then from advertising our upcoming season of racing to where we are here as we now look to our race info with the circuit in the background and our schedule for tonight. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time at +1 at UTC +1. And in just under 5 minutes time, we'll be going into our final qualifying session of the season. All drivers out there in the closed qualifying format looking to go for the ultimate pole lap, and track position is going to be important here at the Belle Isle Park circuit, albeit it's not a circuit you can't overtake at, because overtaking is possible down the long straight, and also a bit of strategy can go hand in hand, but qualifying well is definitely going to be important to kick you off on the way you want to go. After that, we of course head to the grid for our final race of the season, 60-minute feature race at 10:08 this evening. All the drivers will be absolutely going for gold there, and we look forward to it. And well, speaking of going for gold, as we do see many of our drivers making the way around, we're only 4 minutes of practice left. Well, we do need to talk a little bit then about what's up state today. Well, in the GTP class firstly, in our fastest class, and what is the prototype classes out there with their hybrid engines, well, we do have a situation whereby we already have our champion crowned as of the previous round, and that was Patrik Thomsen, who ran away to victory at Spa-Francorchamps and secured the title with his 6th win. Second and third have practically been settled, with it going the way of Austin William Campbell for second, and then it will be John Williams for third. However, we have a big question, which is for 4th place. This man, Amittrajit Ghosh, is one of many who could potentially seal 4th place in the GTP class. Another one out there is none other than Nathan Foster, currently the fastest GTP driver. Matthew Sherverton, unfortunately, hasn't quite been on the grid enough and scored enough points to be eligible, but he'll be looking to try and go for glory all the same. But therefore, we do have that question, will it be Foster or Ghosh, or will it be one of our other drivers who's not on the grid today, but will just inherit it based on previous results, will take 4th place in the GTP class? Now, from 4th place in the GTPs, we then come to a much bigger question in LMP2. Will it be Effect Simulations' James Ibram who takes home the crown, or will it be fellow driver Øystein Herfjord, who's currently parked up in the pit lane? Well, that is a big question, because the story so far is that after 8 rounds of racing, they are tied on points, 180 points apiece. However, result count back with 5 wins to the 3 of James Ibram, Øystein Herfjord is the man who leads in the championship only on result count back. So all the permutations are as follows, essentially. James Ibram, if he wants to take on home the crown in LMP2, he's got to outscore Herfjord. Herfjord, meanwhile, just needs to match the score of James Ibram, or alternatively outscore him. So Herfjord does come into this round with an advantage. On paper, at least, James Ibram has been the faster driver all season over singular laps and with regards to race pace. However, it's in the races where misfortune has struck Ibram with regards to strategy, as we saw at Spa-Francorchamps only a week ago, where it all went wrong as he tried to make his way into the pit lane, where 2 GT3s were battling in front of him at the bus stop chicane, and in the end he had to take an excursion, which cost him 4 seconds of time and saw the lead swing to Øystein Herfjord, and he's had a number of instances like that over the course of the season, whereas Herfjord has had the better run of the fortune, has also perhaps been able to stay out of the trouble, and that's been the difference between the two of them. But it has been very fine margins, and we look forward to seeing how it all ends between them. The 2 Effect Simulation drivers definitely very friendly on and off the circuit, and we look forward to seeing who is going to walk away with that title. Coming to the GT3s, well, everything has been sealed for the GT3 Pro Championship. Casper Brotner has flown his way to victory in the Ford Mustang GT3, and we do have the question, who's going to finish second in that class? Will it be Si Anthony, who I believe is in the pit lane at the moment, and there he is, obscured slightly by the balcony over the start-finish line straight, and well, in fact, that will be the crane there in order to put Barney Flagg to wave the flag. And in terms of his rivals, well, Si Anthony leads the hunt for second, but Jack Barker is also looking to get into the fight as we see his Acura parts up, the Acura NSX Evo. He's been the driver who's perhaps not been on the pace compared to Si Anthony, albeit in the wet conditions he really has been one of the stars, and also he's been Mr. Consistent in terms of springing some surprises, albeit it didn't work out Spa-Francorchamps with that huge instant into the wall coming out of Blanchimont. Si Anthony having a similar instant, or being able to get away with it, and therefore that is going to be their battle. Meanwhile, in the GT3 M class, well, James Connolly was the victor last time out, and what a drive he had at Spa-Francorchamps, absolutely running away to victory, whereas everyone else seemed to stumble and fall over each other on the way with that very well-managed drive. He did enjoy a good battle with Christian Maltrek in the GT3 Pro class, and unfortunately, Maltrek's not going to be on the grid today. But your 2 main belligerents, firstly, championship leader by 3 points, James Foster. The DCW Racing McLaren driver seems to feel everything is moving in his direction. You can't fault him for it, because he has been a force in the second half of this season. Matt Edmondson, meanwhile, is his rival. 3 points behind. Edmondson's had a bad run of form quite recently in terms of fortune, and things haven't quite gone his way, but can he turn things around at the final hurdle? Of course, Edmondson will need to finish at least 2 places ahead of Foster if he wants to take the crown, and make sure Foster doesn't get at least 1 bonus point. But for all those questions and more, well, we need to start getting some answers, and we're going to get them, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time to head into qualifying. 10 minutes. Who's going to put it on pole in respective classes? Let's find out. So here we go then, the final qualifying session of the season. 10 minutes and out they'll pour from the pit lane onto the circuit. One of many there being Richard Jones as he heads on out there in the slow and steady racing Acura. Unfortunately not joined by his teammate this evening, Alex Brown, who couldn't quite make this round. We can see Alex there in the YouTube chat and we say good evening to Alex, and he does apologise for not being able to make it, and no worries at all. Alex, completely understand. Sometimes personal life comes up, and at the end of the day, nobody is going to discourage you from living your life. But one thing we can also say is we'd love to have you back on the grid in a future Multiclass League or even the pure GT3 season that's upcoming in a couple of weeks' time, for the simple reason may have been your first entry into sim racing in terms of a league, but we've loved having you on the grid, and I'm sure many would love to see you back competing in our GT3 AM class and looking to move yourself forward there, because everyone starts somewhere, and indeed we'd love to see you start on our grids. But as we do see his teammate Jones making his way around, well, Jones of course having some great pace in the opening third of the season. It's gone a little bit haywire. He hasn't quite been on the grid for the entirety of the second half of the season. However, when he has been back, he has enjoyed some great racing. As we do say hello to Honez Racing now, I do believe it might be the YouTube count of Richard Jones, in fact, although don't quote me on that, and therefore he might have just been taking an idle moment. And we also do say hello to Aston Wilby and I believe Simon Hartley there, who says good luck to all tonight, and I hope you're doing well, Simon. Indeed, all you tuning in, hope you're all doing well. But Jones makes his way on out there. Well, what can we expect in qualifying? Well, the importance of qualifying is absolutely clear, because as you can see from these pictures around the circuit, there's plenty of room to go too wide at most places, but you don't normally want to go too wide into the majority of the corners here at Belle Isle Park, for the simple reason to do so it costs a lot of time and it can really bleed off your speed, and also it requires quite a bit of trust with your rivals. And that's not to say our drivers do not trust each other, and Ben Cullen, for example, has had some great battles with this man, Tom Farr, for DDK Racing Team over the course of the season. I think that mutual trust will have built up there, but if you can get clear, and if you can put yourself at the front of the field, then you're going to feel a little bit more confident that you'll be able to try and run away from the rest of the field. However, with the space, there is room to overtake, and with strategy as well, with that single pit stop, we can expect a little bit of a shuffle around the grid, as we do see there Tom Farr going a little bit deep down into turn number 3, and well, that is the sign of the road surface changes there. And one other thing, which we'll show you very shortly when we do jump on board for a flying lap of this circuit, something that's perhaps lesser known about the Belle Isle Park circuit. There's not that many brake markers around here. Most of the corners are not labelled with braking boards or anything of the like, and there's very few visual markers. So that's why this circuit is a very challenging one, because you have road surface changes midway into braking zones, such as the run from turn 2 to 3, but you also have a lack of brake markers to put 2 and 2 together, and what it naturally means is we're equals 4 mathematically, but around here it's all scoring 4 in terms of trying to find the best way to attack each and every corner, and that's what makes this circuit one that's not always popular with that many drivers, but those who get to know it, oh goodness me, that's a huge sideways moment there from John Williams, where he gets to know the barriers very quickly as he makes his way back to the pit lane. He'll go again, but that'll be his first flying lap ticked off, and with another outlap he's now only going to have 3 flying laps available the next time he comes around. So it has gone wrong for John Williams early on, and that could be a sign of what many may experience here today in qualifying, if not over the race distance. Now, we do have a bit of a depleted field here, only about 20 drivers in the 10th day for this season finale, but what we lack in quantity, as I always like to say, we definitely make up for in terms of the quality of the drivers. And speaking of quality, well, Jack Barker makes his way through the final corner, and as he does so, let's jump on board for a flying lap of the circuit. So breaking his way into turn number 1, breaking there at the 100-metre board through the right into left, the sweeping S's section. And as he exits out the corner, you can see bouncing over the road surface and now down towards turn number 3. A long stretch here, going up towards 5th gear, bringing the car gradually over to the left-hand side. Here we look into his left-hand side there for the braking boards. And as he does so, coming down there at the 100-yard board from the apex to 2nd gear, and now all the way into the tight section of 4 through to 6. Through the right-hander of 4 he goes, lets the car scoop out wide before gradually bringing it over to the right-hand side. Braking nice and early here for turn number 5. You can see the car bouncing around. That's how unsteady the road is as he makes his way over to the left here for turn 6. Slight dab of the wall there with the brake just to settle the car down. And as he makes his way out to the right-hander, now it'll be down the back straight. As he flows between the curves, he'll try and point the car directly between the curvature of the 2 walls in order to shorten the run down towards turn number 7, and he'll very shortly be onto the brakes here, about 150 metres from corner apex down to 2nd gear, and lets the car roll up, but not too wide as he brings it over to the right hand side, and now into turn 8, a very tight sequence here around the fountain, and this is where we can expect it to be single file all the way through the race. He comes through 8 into 9, and now into the switchback right-hander, turn number 10, 1st gear, the lowest speed corner on the circuit, and he absolutely brings that together now as he heads in towards turn number 12. 12 in towards the right-hander here. Quick dab of the brakes, shut the car in, stay in third gear, runs a little bit wide of apex there, bringing it through turn number 13, now holding third gear all the way through. And this has been an absolutely lovely lap from Jack Barker. It may not necessarily be the fastest, but goodness me, has it been smooth as he comes across the line. Where's it going to put him from third in GT3 Pro? He'll find himself moving forward in terms of lap time, but not moving up the charts there. It's a 29.605, where it wasn't the fastest. That error at turn number 12 costed him about 2/10 of a second, but still I think he'll be happy with that one. And 9, it hasn't made a graze with the wall so far in that Acura, but as he comes on down in towards turn at number 3, well, the fastest man in the GT3s at the moment is Darren Sharples, who's made his way to the pit lane, as Casper Brockner meanwhile makes his way down towards turn number 7. He's only 1.5 tenths off of his teammate. And while Spa-Francorchamps last time out before the Old Dudes and Cars team was a very interesting round, because at one point they were leading 1-2 in the GT3 Pro class, and then suddenly both drivers in separate instances ended up in the barriers at different points in the circuit, and it all went backwards. Not the way that Old Dudes and Cars wanted to celebrate their driver taking the GT3 Pro crown. Indeed, not the way they wanted it to finish, but still, they finished, and that's the most important part there. And even Brockner saying in his own words, a completely unexpected end to the day in Belgium. But speaking of unexpected right now, well, Nathan Foster, he'll feel as though it's a bit unexpected that he's 2 seconds faster than everybody else in the GTP class. And, well, the Empire Motorsport driver here in the Porsche 963 looking very happy of how that car's flying on around as he heads towards the timeline. And what's he going to do this time as he completes his third flying lap? He's got one more to go, and, well, that's an even faster top time there, 1 minute 20.646. And Foster right now looking to try and dive down into the low 20s if he can, but how much more time has he got out there? And, well, the question is, will we see a last gasp chance from John Williams? We do know that Williams, when he gets it right in qualifying, he really has been second best to Austin William Campbell. He's been the third fastest driver over the course of the season as Williams in that Cadillac. But the Cadillac around here, the roar of the V8, well, the one thing about this V-Series machine is it loves the straights and it loves long acceleration zones. It may not enjoy the run through turns 7 through to 11 as much by comparison, as he makes his way through the left-hander at turn number 10, now in towards 11, the hairpin, and as he comes out of the corner, Matthew Sheraton goes second fastest over on in GTP at 22.182. What can Williams do, however? We're going to stay with him all the way through. Well, we then do look to the GT3 AM class to see how that's playing out as he makes his way through. Off camera as well, Øystein Herfjord just moved to the top of the LMP2 times by 2.5 tenths over Ibram, and that's a 21.503. Williams comes across the line. It's a personal best, and it's a good enough for second, but it's still 1.5 seconds off of Foster's time. I think Williams now is going to go even more aggressive on his final flying lap. What about the GT3 AM class then? Well, we can see here Matt Edmondson currently second in the class. Richard Jones is the fastest by 2.5 tenths, and we did say about Jones being strong at the start of the season. Perhaps Jones is going to bookend his season with a strong performance at the end of it, and, well, that's always a good way to end the season. If you start strong and end strong, you can always walk away with a big smile. But Edmondson right now, he is looking to be 7 tenths faster than James Foster. Foster out there at 7 points on the circuit on his final flying laps. They're both on their last laps here, but it does look as though advantage Edmondson at the moment. But remember, Foster does have an advantage in his own right, which is he doesn't need to beat Edmondson on circuit to take the championship crown. All he's got to do is finish 1 place behind him, or finish 2 places behind, and take both of the bonus points, or at least 1 bonus point. However, right now it's looking as though Foster is going to need to find a little bit more out there if he wants to give himself a bit more confidence, because 7 tenths is the delta between himself and Edmondson. Edmondson's going to be the first of the 2 of them to head to the line. Edmondson is on an improving lap, it looks like, based on the first half of the lap. He comes to the line then, and we started at third. Where's he going to go this time? As he crosses the line, he improves to second. Foster comes across the line meanwhile. Where does he go in GT3? And we halves the deficit to the fastest time, but stays fourth there, and that is a little story in its own right, which is the DCW Racing driver will start fourth from the GT3M grid, and, well, that's going to put him a little bit further back from where he would like. Surprises elsewhere. GTP, John Williams has not been able to outpace Nathan Foster by 35 thousandths in the end. Foster has taken GTP pole unless Sheraton or Amittrajit Ghosh can find a surprise there at the last minute. And here we do see the Aztec Racing red, yellow and black machine. Goodness me, that livery is incredible on the Porsche, I can tell you that. And, well, if we're giving away prizes for liveries, it'd definitely be a contender for livery of the season. And as he roars his way around, well, he's got a minute left to go. He will get this lap in. Elsewhere in the GTP class, Amittrajit Ghosh is on a lap a bit further back. Everyone else, meanwhile, is in the pit lane. But let's stay focused here on our Porsche driver as he makes his way into turn number 12, coming through the right hand. And we know the Porsche's got the pace here. We've seen it from Foster. And well, can Cheverton get himself a little bit closer? Otherwise, he might be having to deal with Ghosh over the race distance. And as he comes to the line for Cheverton, he started this lap in third place in class. And he's going to move himself to a better time of 21.531. But it doesn't move him any further up the order. And well, Amittrajit Ghosh now on a personal best for the first half a lap. Can he find a little bit of magic out there as he roars his way around? And we can imagine the speed these GTPs take on this lap by comparison with the GT3 reference lap we had earlier. And to put you in the sense of perspective, the fastest lap overall, Nathan Foster at 1 minute 20.646. That's in the GTP machine. LMP2 fastest lap, it's James Ibram third as Ghosh does not finish his lap. And well, let's head to the grid then, ladies and gentlemen, for our final race of the day. So as we head to the grid, this is how they line up then for our season finale at the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle for round 9 and 9 in the VRS-sponsored UK Sim Racing Multiclass League Season 3 as brought to you on iRacing. Starting on pole position overall and in GTP, it's Nathan Foster for Empire Motorsport. A 1 minute 20.646, an absolutely brilliant lap there, and out-inching John Williams for Effect Simulations by 35 thousandths in the end, who lines up second alongside. Matthew Sheraton takes the third place spot for Aztec Racing, beating Amittrajit Ghosh to that position, and he will start in turn. Will Ghosh in fourth place. The priority then being followed up by the LMP2 field. And as we can see, it'll be James Ibram who sets the fastest LMP2 time. An absolutely brilliant lap there from Ibram for Effect Simulations Club Sport. And he was just able to beat Øystein Herfjord to the punch by the best part of 2 attempts there. But we know the Effect Simulations Carbon driver. He's normally the stronger driver over the race distance in terms of how fortune has favoured him. He'll be gutted to have missed out on the pole position there to give himself the bonus point. But he'll also know right now all he's got to do is finish ahead of Ibram or match on points there and score the fastest lap bonus point if he finishes second. In 7th place, third of the LMP2s, is Emil Koopmans for Effect Simulations Club Sport, and he's in the company of Ben Cullen for Effect Simulations, with DDK Racing Team's Tom Farr completing the LMP2 class field starting 9th. Then we come to the GT3s, and it will be on GT3 overall pole position, and with GT3 Pro pole position, Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars, a brilliant pole lap there, and inching his way ahead of his teammate, because behind them on row number 6, it will be Best the Rest in 11th, Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars, and then we have your GT3 and pole sitter starting third in the class. What a lap from him. Give him a round of applause. Slow and Steady Racing's Richard Jones there, and what a lap from him. Behind him will be Cy Anthony, who starts on the 7th row of the grid for Dragon Rezio, head of UK Sim Racing Buttons Matt Edmondson, with James Connolly then following on through, his teammate in 15th place ahead of James Foster for DCW Racing, and Foster knows he's got to deal with both of the UK Sim Racing Button team drivers now, and then he'll be followed up by Jack Barker for Made Racing, who starts his day 17th ahead of Rob Windsor for UK Sim Racing Irvine, and then completing our 20 drivers on the grid, it'll be Nathan Anstis for UK Sim Racing Irvine and John Davis for the Wrong Stuff, who didn't get a valid lap in, but after that brilliant performance at Spa-Francorchamps, can you blame him if we'll be expecting John Davis to try and cut his way through the field? Whereas all the drivers make the way off, it does look as though already we are halfway round, and we're going to be 3/4 of the way round by the time they exit turn number 11. But as we do say hello to Stuart Pearson there in the YouTube chat, who's cheering on at Richard Jones. Well, can Jones bring on home that GT3 AM victory? And I believe that victories have escaped in this season despite some fantastic performances, particularly at Fuji, the most notable one. And well, maybe he'll bring his first victory in the final round. Whereas elsewhere in the GTP class, will it be Williams or will it be Foster who takes home the honours? Or could we see Cheverton and Ghosh spring a surprise? And in LMP2, will it be Ibram or Herfjord who are able to come on through? Well, there's so many questions to be answered here, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to have 60 minutes of racing plus a final lap to tell us all the stories and more. But as we do have our leaders coming on through, it's time to head to the green. And it's go, go, go for Nathan Foster as he roars his way away, short of the start line, and in towards turn number 1 they go, and Williams immediately with him. Matthew Cheverton also gets the launch. Amittrajit goes a little bit slow on the pole, but as they roar the way out, meanwhile in the LMP2 class, already Ben Cullen battling with Emil Koopmans in towards turn number 1, can't find the move initially there, but he's going to look the other way now as they come out of turn number 2 and down onto the straight towards turn 3. They go for the first time, but can he get a move done here? Well, here they go, and you can see there Koopmans going very defensive. Cullen looking around the outside as they charge away into the braking zone. It's not going to quite work out there. Defensive driving absolutely execute to aplomb for Koopmans. Further back in the GT3 class, it's been a good start here for our GT3 leader, Darren Sharples, but look who's behind him. Richard Jones has called Casper Brotner napping by looks of things in terms of the race start, and as they come out of turn number 3, well, that's a change here. You've got the GT3 Pro leader ahead of the AM leader, and then Brotner and Cy Anthony closing up behind. Jack Barker under some pressure from James Connolly, who tries to get up his inside. James Connolly's had a slow start as well. Connolly has fallen all the way back, and in fact has enabled James Foster and Rob Windsor to get on through. but still side by side here between Conley and Barker through turn number 5 in towards 6. You don't normally go too wide here, but they're going to pull it off anyway as they roar the one out. A little bit of cut back there. Conley taps the wall, and now Barker's going to be close. He makes his way down the back stretch. Will he be able to find a move here? That's going to be the problem. If he's going to go for it, he's got to go for it early here into turn number 7. Well, in the draft, you can see that right now that Acura just does not have the speed, and onto the brakes they go, and in the end, he's going to wait. Oh, that's a big tap to the wall there for Nathan Anstis, and well, thankfully, it was a relatively square tap. You could see there the way the car shook. I think driver's shaken up by it, and hopefully there's nothing serious on the car. But as he makes his way on through, well, after one lap of race at the front, it's John Williams who leads. Nathan Foster's been involved in some sort of altercation. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can, but Williams is leading as he heads down towards turn number 3 with Matthew Sheraton right behind, and then Amittrajit Ghosh is 2 seconds off of the top 2. In LMP2, it's James Ibram already starting to streak away ahead of Øystein Herfjord as they come on through turn number 3 for the second time. Emil Cooper's completing their class top 3. You can see them all there in the picture. Tom Farr much further back, and I think he's been involved in an altercation of his own, as had Ben Cullen. From them, we do come to your GT3s, and here we can see Darren Sharples pulling away at the front of the field, but then we've got our GT3 AM leader of Richard Jones. He's under pressure, and Brotner and Cy Anthony are right with him as they roar the way on out of the corner. Cy Anthony takes the peak, can't quite find it, tucks back in, but let's ride on board with the Porsche 992 as it heads out to the right and in towards the left of turns 4 and 5 as they roll their way on around. The Welshman right now, well, taking his time here, backing off a little bit, coming out 5 in towards 6, and I think deciding to play the pace. Oh, that's a big hit to the wall. That's going to be nasty, and Cy Anthony's race goes from good to bad to disaster in the space of one corner and a little bit of concrete, and that now is going to bring him crashing down to earth, albeit I think he's been able to survive it, but I wouldn't be surprised there if the right inside suspension of that car is now feeling worse for wear, and he's going to try and carry on here. Perhaps he's got away with it, but he won't get many more chances than that. My goodness, that was a tap that definitely saw that Porsche go sideways more than it normally would, and it's dropped him all the way down to 13th overall. But as he makes his way around, hold up a second, that's Richard Jones with a drama, Sonny. It absolutely explodes live on lap number 2 for the GT3s. Jones is backwards into the wall there at turn 10 into 11. He gradually nurses his way on through, respect to the fact that he does have cars making their way on around. That's not John Williams, that was John Davies there in the GT3 McLaren making his way on around in the AM class, and Ben Cullen as well. I think Cullen's come out of the pits recently after some repair work being done, so goodness me, I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but we can see the aftermath. And whilst all this is going on, in all the madness, James Foster finds himself now leading the GT3 AM class. He's been able to get ahead of Matt Edmondson off camera, and well, we can get a replay of that in due course, but I can tell you one thing, Foster right now, he's got the lead of the class, and all he needs to do is break away, as we can see Rob Windsor behind him, Matt Edmondson absolutely nipping at the heels of his championship rival, and Foster at this point has just got to keep the man behind him at bay for the remainder of the race. If he can do that, he will become the champion. But as he comes through turn number 5 and in towards 6, keeping an eye, Edmondson did not pick up the bonus point for fastest lap in qualifying. That went the way of Richard Jones, therefore that will give him some confidence here that all the points are gradually heading his way. Well, Edmondson is losing the opportunity to be able to take points, but making the way out of turn 6 and into 7. We can see there Foster getting a much better run coming out of turn number 6, and in fact starting to pull away a little bit here as he heads into the right-hander. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Edmondson's immediately switching into a fuel-saving mentality here, which is okay. If I'm going to stay behind my championship rival, I might as well save as much fuel as I can if I feel I can stay with him whilst fuel-saving. That is a very strong tactic here at Belle Isle. If you can save some fuel, you will gain time, you'll gain a lot of it, and as they make the way out of turn number 11, you can see there how bumpy the road is. Edmondson having a brief tap with the wall. You'll see plenty of those for our drives. Those small little taps, they don't really make much of a difference. They will cost you a little bit of speed, but they don't do any damage to the car. It's when you get the big taps like what happened to Cy Anthony, that's when the problems happen. But as he powers his way on along, when they make the way onto another lap, we need to take a look back at some of the drama on the opening couple of laps, and we begin with the open lap for Nathan Foster, and here's the replay. Now, this was Foster making his way through turn number 4 in towards 5. Car looked A-okay there. So into 5 he went. And the rear of the car, just letting go. Oh, my good Lord. And then John Williams coming straight through the side of Nathan Foster. Not even time to react. And all the drivers have been told that they do need to immediately tow to the pits if they do end up in an incident. We take a look back at that one. Let's just listen in as he made his way into the corner. and the car just letting go, and then there was the additional contact. But then we come to what happened on lap number 1 for Tom Farr in the LMP2 class. Now, this was heading down towards turn number 7, so as he was on his own way up towards the corners, looks though sank of his own volition, goes onto the brakes, and the car straight lines on, and I think he was of two minds. Do I let it roll straight, or do I turn into the corner? And in the end, he made the same decision at the same time, which was to do both, and he found the tyre barrier very quickly, and that's why he's had to come to the pits. Ben Cullen, meanwhile, what happened to Ben Cullen? Well, he was making his way through turn number 8 into 9, so around the fountain, and as he did so, tucked into the toe there of the 904, and just losing it into turn number 10. I wonder if he was caught shy on braking there, perhaps had to stab the brakes in a bit of an emergency, and that caused the rear of the car to completely lock up and go around. On lap number 2, this is what happened to John Williams, and he was at the time leading in GTP, but remember, he did have that tap with Nathan Foster as he came out to turn number 5. And this is a similar incident to what happened to Tom Farr. He went into the braking zone and in the end couldn't decide to go straight on to the right, so he did at the middle of the two and found that tyre barrier as well. And the tyre barrier at turn number 7 has definitely claimed quite a few cars so far. And then Richard Jones he made his way on a round through the fountain sequence. What happened here to Richard Jones? He made his way up through turn number 10. And the rear of the car just let go there. So perhaps an unstable setup on the rear of the car and a slight graze with the barrier, but that's not going to hurt the car whatsoever. So multiple incidents there, and we've just had something happen to Matt Edmondson whilst all this has been happening. And this is just on lap number 4 now. Jason after James Foster, turn number 5. It called out one driver earlier on. Hold up a second, and oh, goodness me now. Well, he went for out the inside there of James Foster, and the two of them having to come in together. I think Foster may have made an error coming through there, and well, in the end, Edmondson has come off the worst for it. Let's ride on board and just see what happens and try to dissect it. So this was through 5. Foster goes very sideways. Now Edmondson here, seeing his opportunity, decided to squeeze up the inside, but in doing so, gets caught on the side of Foster's car, and that sends him around. And well, we tried to get a look at that from Foster's perspective if we can, and I think we can here, so let's listen in. And a big slide loose there from Foster, counter-steered it, but at this point he'll see that Sonny Edmondson comes up the inside of him. Oh, goodness me. Now, that one I think is going to go to the stewards after the race there, because both drivers will have their own interpretation of what happened. Foster would argue is holding in the middle of the road. And, well, goodness me, what a nightmare moment for the two of them as we come back to your live screens, ladies and gentlemen. Well, those are all the big incidents that have happened over the course of the opening 8 minutes of racing so far. And, well, we didn't quite get a replay of how Foster got ahead of Edmondson in the first place, but we have seen the aftermath when Matt Edmondson tried to get back ahead of a sideways Foster. And, well, as it all carries on, it does mean now, with plenty more distance to be covered, plenty more of drama to come, no doubt about it, as that is going to be a move being made there. James Connolly up the inside of Rob Windsor, swapping places for second place in GT3 AM, and we'll sight Anthony a little bit further in front there, the second place GT3 Pro driver trying to break away as they roll the way on through, and I can see a number of opinions and interpretations being given there from you guys and girls in the YouTube chat as to the Foster Edmondson incident. A 50-50 there for Ryan Walker and Sean Cranley Swash, and saying hello to both of them. And also we must give a special shout out to Ryan Walker, because you may have noticed the photo that was used for the purposes of this broadcast thumbnail. Well, that was the LMP2 for the Altitude 3M Esports machine of Ryan Walker. Unfortunately not able to make it onto the grid today, but we wanted to make sure that he did have the season-ending photo thumbnail, because he has been the official photographer for the UK Sim Racing Multiclass League Season 3, and his photos have been absolutely incredible. And indeed, if you're not aware of Ryan Walker's sim racing photography, well, let's make you aware of it, because he puts together some absolutely stunning photos there, an absolutely cost-effective price, and an up-and-coming man in sim racing photography, no doubt about it. As we do see a swap of positions there, James Connie losing 2 places for the price of 1 error coming for the turn 11 hairpin, and that's Rob Windsor and Jack Barker squeezing their way on through. And as they make the way now in towards turn 14, I think that's going to be a trip to the pits for James Connie. Something has broken that car. I think, in fact, if I do search back through my memory, he did have a bit of a brush with the wall coming out of turn 11. He tapped the wall, and perhaps that's damage he's picked up that's knocked his wheels out of alignment, as here we have 2 drivers who are out of alignment in terms of where they should be on the circuit. And that's our 2 GTPs of John Williams and Nathan Foster, who are right now trying to get themselves back on the lead GTP lap as quickly as they can, because they do have class leader Matthew Sheraton right behind them as he tries to chase them down and put a lap on them, and Amittrajit Ghosh is behind them as well. And right now the Ferrari driver, I think he fancies his chances in this one, because I can tell you one thing about Amittrajit Ghosh: he has not been the fastest driver in GTP this season, and he has been involved in a few incidents, but he's been incredibly consistent with regards to his driving over the course of the season. Some mistakes have crept in, such as at Laguna Seca. For the most part, however, he's been improving, and he has been one of those drivers who's just been putting in the lap laps. And if he can keep the pressure on Cheverton and not make any mistakes of his own, could he be coming away from here, not just with his first podium of the season, but also potentially his first win of the season? And that would be a huge achievement for the privateer. But as he makes his way down the back stretch, well, more to come, no doubt about it, as we do see here. Well, that is going to be Sight Anthony up the inside, James Foster through 10 and in towards 11. And I can see there that right now for James Foster, you can see how the mentality's changed after that contact between himself and Edmondson. And that's not to be rude about him. He's playing it smart here, Foster, which is, I'm not going to fight anybody outside of my class. It doesn't matter whether they're GT3, LMP2 or GTP. I don't want to have trouble with them. All he's going to do is try and hold on to that GT3 AM lead, and I suspect he may even consider sacrificing it if he feels there's a lot of pressure coming from Windsor, for the simple reason that all Foster has to do to win this race now, presuming that Edmondson does not make his way back onto the lead lap and Sonny springs to life and there's not 101 adverse circumstances coming on in, all Foster needs to do is now get to the end of the race distance, and he will be taking this home. But as he roars his way out to turn number 3 and up towards 4, well, it's a long distance away, and of course the thing is, you can never know what happens until they reach that checkered flag. But Windsor in the meantime, or he's going to work as much as he can here for UK Sim Racing Button, Edmondson's teammate, and he'll want to try and steal away that crown as best as he possibly can. Now we do also have in contention the Teams Championship, that being contested between the two teams, I believe, of Effect Simulations Club Sport and Old Duty Cars. They're separated by 32 points going into this round, and Club Sport right now would see that title go their way, I do believe, as we do have the GTP pair of Williams and Foster trying to carve their way through this GT3 field, where they're going to do so here. This is absolutely brilliant, intense racing between them as they make the way around. Emil Koopmans is into the pit lane. However, no update at the moment on your two class leaders in the LMP2 class of Ibram and Herfjord. They're separated by 1.7 seconds on average, but here we go then as we do ride on board with Nathan Foster up the inside of Rob Windsor, trying to follow John Williams through, trying to do everything that Williams does in order to make the most of the traffic management that Williams is carving out for him. But Foster almost into the wall there, going for turn number 13, and you'll see a gap on the inside. Oh my goodness, that is very, very tight there. That'll make your hair stand on end, no doubt about it. And Foster in the end finding that Sight Anthony is going to be a little bit of a rolling roadblock in his way until he carves his way on the switchback out turn number 2, and Sight Anthony there lets the GTP go, and Foster right now absolutely going as quickly as he can here to try and clear all the cars around him. You can understand why, because he's very eager to try and get himself into that battling position. But as he comes on around in towards turns 4, 5 and 6, Williams is able to put a bit of breathing room. Rowing the way on around as we do say hello to Justin Pereira, who says it's an hour's race, just push, no fuel save. Well, we definitely see some drivers absolutely push it to the limit, no doubt about it. With the limitations on the fuel tank, they will need to take on some fuel at some point. All of our drivers, given the fuel tanks have been limited to force that mandatory pit stop. But right now, speaking of forcing things, well, Nathan Anstis will try to force a move on Jack Barker if he can, as he wants to try and get ahead of the Made for Racing Acura driver. But the UK Sim Racing Irvine driver staying close. We're not able to make a move at the moment, and indeed that Acura just not looking as strong on the straights compared to its fellow mid-engine rear-wheel drive rival, the McLaren. In the corners, it does seem to be a very happy car. Going the way on around, and well, in terms of other things that happen, we have had a pit stop, a good spot there from Sean Cranny-Swash for Darren Sharples, and I wonder as to why. I think Sharples potentially going for an undercut strategy nice and early on, because it was a 26.5 second pit stop, so therefore he would have put a lot of fuel in the car, and if so, that's where it could alternatively be for repair work. But they do get a fast repair, so I'd imagine that Sharples would have turned that on immediately, as that's a hit with the wall, and that was for the car of, I think that was Nathan Anstis, who had a bit of a pointed impact with the outside wall at turn number 13, so the 96 there is going to lose a little bit of time, potentially some aero in doing so as they come on around. But as they roar the way onto another lap, we do look to James Ibram, your class leader in LMP2. And he has got a 1.7 second gap to his rival in the championship, Øystein Herfjord. And right now, things were to finish as they currently stand. It would be Ibram who would take home that crown, because he does have the fastest lap in class. Also the pole position lap as he dives up the inside there of James Foster. And what Ibram right now knows, he needs to take these risks. He needs to make sure that Herfjord is as far away as possible. And Herfjord there with a double dose of traffic. 2 GT3 McLarens right in front of him. And we'll just biding his time here and looking to come through, hoping the traffic will swing back in his favour a little bit longer on. But as the drivers make the way on around, I get the feeling, I do agree with you there, Ryan Walker in the YouTube chat, Sharples most likely pitting early to try and get himself on clear track, given how crowded the circuit is at the moment. Indeed, looking at that track map, where is Sharples in all of it? And the answer is here he is in the running all the way down in 19th place overall as he comes in towards turn number 6. In front of me, he does have the car of James Connolly that's also made a pit stop, but Connolly coming in for a fast repair, not for a fuel stop, and therefore Sharples right now, we're trying to move forward as quickly as he can and use the open track to his advantage, because the next car after that is 7.5 seconds up the road, and it's John Davis, the 4th place GT3 AM runner. So Sharples here might be putting off a bit of a masterclass strategy, and if this works out for him, I think there's going to be a big smile on his face come the end of the race. But through turn number 10 he goes, and looking up the inside, they're trying to take a little bit of a nibble of Connolly, trying to say to Connolly, look, I'm coming, you've got to be ready for it. However, trying to pass there is just as much about gambling as it is about a little bit of tactics, and as they come in towards turn number 12, well, right now Sharples all over the back of his fellow McLaren, and graze with all their sparks fly as they make their way on around, and it's such a tricky circuit, this Detroit circuit. They roar the way onto another lap between them, only 15 minutes complete. We've still got plenty of race distance to go, and right now everybody picking the right time to go close to those wolves as well as staying away from them, as Sharples absolutely glued to the toe here of James Connolly, but he can't find a way through at this time. Can the old dudes in cars 777? But pound their way down the turn 2 to 3 straight, and well, he's going to stay there as long as he needs to, it would seem. But as they make the way through the right-hander, looking a bit further up the order, all the way to the front, here's your 2 leaders over on in GTP. Matthew Cheverton still running the lead this race, albeit in terms of those lap times, well, previous lap he was 6/10 of a second slower compared to the man behind him, Amittrajit Ghosh. But how are they going to be at the time they come around this time? Well, for Cheverton, it is going to be a 1 minute 21.44. Amittrajit Ghosh, meanwhile, will be setting there a 1 minute 21.55. So Cheverton sets the personal best. Ghosh was a tenth slower that time, as well we briefly lose Ghosh, and he rematerializes from the ether, and well, as he does come back to life, the number 17 driver here still trying to push onwards, but the gap is going the way of Cheverton, at least for now. But from them, we do come back down the order to Foster versus Williams, and we're still absolutely nose to tail between the two of them. They are lapping considerably faster compared to the GTP leaders by a couple of tenths a lap, so in theory, you would imagine they will catch up to them at some point, albeit they've got a lot of time to make up before they do. And well, they do still have the GTP leaders about 7 seconds behind them on circuit at the moment, so it is going to be a game of these two battling each other and also making sure they run away from the class leaders who are trying to put a lap on them. So a bit of a unique situation to find themselves in, to be honest. Not one I've ever seen over the course of my sim racing and commentary career, but I can tell you one thing. It is an innovative situation, and Detroit always makes some interesting situations right towards the end. So there you can see Cheverton in the rear of the picture, and right now he's going to be playing the game of trying to hunt down the two drivers who are faster in the GP cars, but he wants to put a lap on them, so that way they really lose the opportunity to be a part of the race. But Cheverton's got to be careful of the fact that if he pushes too hard, well, he may succumb to the same fate as what they've come to earlier on. But from GTP antics, coming back to GT3s, we're still Rob Windsor, stuck behind James Foster. No change here. Foster has lost Sight Anthony, however, and Sight Anthony has in fact opened up a bit of a gap over the last couple of laps. The lap times gradually heading the way to the second place GT3 Pro drivers. He just makes his way under the camera there, and in towards turn number 13, our 2 AM battlers go. And as they roar the way out of the quarter, well, right now Windsor still absolutely glued. He'll do everything he can to put pressure on Foster in order to help out his teammate Matt Edmondson. Speaking of whom, a lap down in GT3 AM, here is Matt Edmondson, and right now he can't give up hope here. He's got to just believe that some fortune may come his way in the 176, and well, right now it's definitely been a season where things have gradually fallen out of his hands in the second half, but he's not going to give up until he sees that checker flag, because at the end of the day, he's a fighter, and he'll know even if he comes away second in the championship, it has been a season-long fight that has definitely been a well-deserved one for whoever takes the championship crown. But heading on towards turn number 3 he goes, and as he does so, his next target is James Connolly, who is the best part of 1 minute and 15 seconds up the road. In fact, where is Connolly, I hear you ask? Well, here is James Connolly to give you an idea of what 1 minute and 15 seconds gap looks like as he makes his way through turns 1 and 2. So therefore, Connolly essentially playing the game of chasing down Edmondson to potentially put a lap on him, but Edmondson's got to be the faster driver to avoid that. And of course, we do have the challenge of what is all of our drivers have to make some pit stops as that. Ooh, good speed, James Connolly there, missing his braking point. I think unsighted behind the LMP2, and well, as he brings it back together, taps the wall, that is going to hurt, and that's going to take the rear bumper of that McLaren as James Connolly just evicted his car from the race. I think he might have, well, the rear bumper's evicted itself from its presence, and I think James Connolly now, I think that car may have been stalled there as we do come back to our leading GT3 drives, but Connolly in the walls and in arrears, and that is going to hurt absolutely hugely. But from them, as we see Foster and Windsor continue to push each other as much as they possibly can, well, let's come back to your GT3 Pro leader and overall GT3 leader. And this is Casper Brotner, who right now is just running away with proceedings at the front of the classes field. 8 seconds is the gap, and his last lap, another tenth faster than Sight Anthony, who you can see in the rear of the picture. Well, Anthony doing everything he needs to right now to finish second in the GT3 Pro Championship, but Casper Brotner putting on a clinical display here in terms of how to lead a race at Detroit. That Sight Anthony makes his way on down. Will Foster once again going slightly defensive there into turn number 3. Now that might be a sign he doesn't have the confidence and the speed that he carries out of turn number 2, at least this time around compared to Rob Windsor. Windsor very close there as they make the way out of the right-hander and in towards left-hander. It does look as though number 84 starting to wilt a little bit there, as that is a run wide out of turn number 5 and a graze of the barrier. He'll get away with that one. However, it does seem as though Foster right now just not happy with the way this race is flowing. He doesn't need to put himself under any mental pressure, and he'll be reminding himself that, and I'm sure he will have the DCW Racing team in his ear saying to him, just take it easy. You don't need to do anything huge here to bring home this championship. But of course, you can tell a driver that, but the mentality of a driver is very different. When you're in the car, you can have everybody shouting in your ear, but you're the one who's got to drive that car. And when you're driving around the street circuit, the risks become ever more present, ever more threatening from lap to lap. And particularly when you do have your main rival's teammate right behind you, breathing down your neck. And that is where things can get even more treacherous. But through turn number 13 he goes, and as he does so, he's right now going to be thinking to himself, okay, reset, we've got another lap to go, car seems okay. And well, from behind you can see there Jack Barker, well, he's making some progress away from Nathan Anstis now, as the third place GT3 Pro driver continues to move forward, albeit he'll want to finish ahead of Sight Anthony if he wants to try and steal away the run-up spot in the GT3 Pro Championship. As meanwhile, behind him, Tom Farr, well, the DDK Racing Team driver here just wants to clear the GT3. I think he will coming down the run towards turn number 3, but it's definitely been one of those moments where Farr's had to play the patience game, but patience that's definitely going to be rewarded now as they go under braking. And as they come through the right-hander, we have had a further incident occur for one of our GTP drivers. It's Amittrajit Ghosh who's in the pit lane, and I believe the car may be stationary at the moment, undergoing a lot of repair work. But what exactly has happened to Amittrajit Ghosh? Here's the replay to explain. Well, there is a brief replay, but it does look as though we've briefly lost his car. I've got no idea what's happened there to Amittrajit Ghosh. We lose him, and there's the subsequent outcome into the barrier there at turn number 5. So going sideways and emulating a Nathan Foster incident from earlier, and a tow to the pits there. We do apologise for the slightly lackadaisical camera work there, but it did seem as though there was a connectivity issue for our driver. And then subsequently, we saw the aftermath sideways into the barrier at turn number 5. And well, turn number 5 claims another victim. That's now the third on the board there in terms of when incidents happened, and turn 5 definitely proving to be a bit or climax point over the circuit. As the race still carries on, well, that, as the trees obscure what's happening there, I think that's the trees trying to give us some censorship. There is going to be John Williams getting ahead of Emil Koopmans in overall position terms, and Nathan Foster being made to wait behind, as Koopmans here really putting himself between the two GTP drivers who are leading on pace, but they're not leading on circuit. GTP leader Matthew Sheraton is not too far behind him. In fact, there is Sheraton in the rear of the picture, and as we do see Nathan Foster cutting up the inside of Koopmans, he won't be too happy about the fact the LMP2 has kept him there. But this brings us to a very good point. And that is the fact, as we were trying to mention before we did head to the grid, but unfortunately we got cut off at the end of qualifying, the LMP2s and the GTPs, their difference in pace over a lap here for the fastest drivers on a single lap is only approximately a second. So really, the GTPs, if they find themselves behind an LMP2, they could be stuck there for a very long time, unless the LMP2 is willing to let them go, because the pace difference is not that large. And we have seen that over the course of the season on a lot of our tighter and more technical circuits. We saw it at Long Beach as well, albeit excluding the extensive start-finish straight and the backstretch, and also perhaps the more natural flowing corners in the second half of the lap, and that the GTPs were only 2.5 seconds a lap faster compared to the LMP2s, and we're seeing that again here as the drivers make the way on around. But as they do, well, we do come to Darren Sharples, who's having a bit of a scrap here with John Williams. This is for, not John Williams, John Davies, I should say, for GT3 overall position, as that's going to get very tasty there into turn number 6, and in the end, Davies just about holding the line as they made the way through, and well, Sharples, I think he's going to be breathing deep there, and his heart might have been in his mouth. The Wrong Stuff team will also be thinking, John, that is cutting it very close, but what a brilliant bit of defending there from John Davies to hold the outside lines. A tap to the rear there from Sharples. Well, I think missing his braking zone, but also send a slight message message, which is, look, just let me through, or else I'm going to be over the back of you like a bad rash. But John Davis right now thinks, saying, you know what, I'm going to have some fun here because there's nobody around me, and, well, there's nothing in the rules that says we can't race as long as we race fairly. And as he comes out of turn at number 11, who can blame the man as he heads in towards turn 12 here? And we've definitely seen a very sprightly and happy John Davis over the course of this season. He's got faster and faster as the season has gone on, and after that maiden podium at Spa-Francorchamps, well, you can imagine that right now he's feeling his chances there. Both drivers grazed the ball, the sparks fly off the back of those McLarens, and into another lap they go as we've got into the pits Rob Windsor, and Windsor's parked up there, albeit obscured by the pit wall, where he leaves his pit lane spot there, having taken the fuel on he needs to get to the end of the race unscathed on fuel capacity, and now carries his merry way down the pit lane, and they'll take the pit limiter off and go on the attack. But remember, he'll drop to 4th place initially, only then to make his way back up when his rivals do make their pit stops. Albeit at the time Rob Windsor was all the way back over with James Foster, so Foster right now will be thinking, okay, do I react or do I just stay out? And I think he'll be told, stay out, James, don't come in until the fuel tank is practically dry, because there's no need to gamble. But speaking of gambles, we throws his hat into the ring once again, and Daryl Sharples does find his way past John Davis that time. That's return number 4, and I think Davis going a bit deep there given the trajectory of the cars, and Davis keeping the space open there to let our LMP2 come through, and that being your LMP2 leader, James Ibram. Now Ibram here carrying his way on, fastest lap in LMP2 at the moment, sitting with, I believe, James Ibram. And after his pole position, where things finish as they currently stood, it would be James Ibram who would be your provisional LMP2 champion as he roars his way through that left-hander of turn number 8 and in towards 9. But of course, it's not over yet, as Øystein and Herfjord still with him, albeit the gap has opened up a little bit, almost 4 seconds now. The last couple of laps have seen Herfjord not quite matching the pace of Ibram. Traffic is a factor, of course. We can't rule that out. But I think Ibram is now starting to lay the hammer down a little bit more, and the difference is being felt between the two drivers. But through he goes, through turn number 12 in towards 13, and Herfjord will be hoping that a bit of fortune will come his way in due course. But in terms of the lap time history, can we get your lap time history? Yes, we can, I believe. And there is the delta, and that shows you really how the laps have oscillated. Øystein Herfjord into the pit lane, and, well, as we do continue to bring the lap time history between the two drivers there. And, well, Ibram over the last couple of laps has been the faster and has been taking sizable chunks of time, and Herfjord to particularly on lap number 16 at 1.3 seconds slower. I can imagine traffic was a big factor there, but on the average it has been a lap time gap that's been going the way of Ibram every step of the way. But as we do clear the lap time delta there, Øystein Herfjord into the pit lane. He's decided to come on in, and he does make his way back out there on a clear bit of track. So he'll be very happy with that one. The fact he's practically given himself all the breathing room on circuit, but now he'll need to manage the race down to the wire if he wants to try and get close to Ibram. Ibram, of course, will be wary of the fact that his rival was pitted, and I wouldn't be surprised if we potentially see the 903 class leader make his way into the pit lane soon, because, well, if he's not aware of it already, I'm sure he'll be fed the information from the team wall that Herfjord's come out and clear track, so therefore he's got an opportunity to, unless he just fancies his chances, because he's got plenty of clear track in front of him. The next car is our second place GT3 AM driver of Richard Jones, who is about 30. Oh, goodness me, and, well, hold the phone there. That is a big slide through turn number 12. James Ibram, oh, no, you don't want to keep doing that, because if you keep doing that, that is where your race is going to come undone. A big slide to the barrier, hit it square on, but I can imagine that rear left suspension, if it wasn't feeling a little bit knackered, it will be starting to make its way. It's past its use-by date, and, well, he's going to carry on here. No sign of the driver struggling at the moment. I think he's doing a little bit of weaving there down the straight towards turn 3, just to see if the car's pulling to the left or to the right as a result of that impact. But at the moment, at least, it seems okay. But that was definitely a big slide there, and, well, any more like that, and suddenly, could we see Ibram's race go from good to disaster in the space of one Warner corner? Well, we'll have to see. And as things do space out, and everyone now looking at strategy, we do see Nathan Foster continue to chase after John Williams, albeit no change here. A little bit of trivia about this Belle Isle Park circuit. We do refer to it as a historical circuit now, because it is a circuit no longer in use. And if you are wondering as to why, well, the Detroit City in the US state of Michigan has played host to many a Grand Prix, and that's why it's known as the Detroit Grand Prix, albeit then they refer to it as either downtown, which is the current venue, or alternatively at Belle Isle Park, which it was from 1992 through to 2022. As we do see there are GTP drivers siphon their way around the GT3 Pro leader of Casper Rotner. Now the reason for this is because in 2022 it was decided at the end of the racing championship year, particularly by Penske Motorsport and IndyCar, that the racing would be moved to downtown Detroit. Multiple reasons for this, the main one being the accessibility of the Belle Isle Park circuit, in the fact that given its location on an island connecting it to the Detroit City mainland, it was decided that the ability to have spectators drivers, and also the teams gain access to facilities to the circuit was not necessarily appropriate, and therefore it needed to be moved to a more viable location, but also one which would be more accessible for spectators, even if they were not perhaps interested in racing, but the fact you'd be closing down the entire sections of Detroit City in order to go racing, and that's why we have seen the shift back to the main downtown section of Detroit rather than at Belle Isle Park. But this has played host to many a race in IndyCar, with it the IndyCar doubleheader era, which ranged all the way, I'm going to be testing my historical knowledge now, for I think 2013 through to the COVID pandemic years, and then from 2021 to 2022. And will the doubleheader era really be an attempt to revive the popularity of the circuit? Because it did lose its popularity quite early as of 2008 into 2009 due to its limitations from an accessibility standpoint. But as he rolls his way around, well, all drives carried on here. And that's a little bit of trivia for you in regards to the Belle Isle circuit as to why it is a historical circuit, no longer in use. And well, who knows, perhaps one day on iRacing they will bring the downtown circuit of Detroit to the simulator, much like we do have, of course, the Chicago circuit, as that going downtown and around. But Nathan Foster misses his braking zone at turn number 3 and goes straight on there and will misses the wall. You could see, and many of our drivers have had this indecisive moment, which is, do I turn for the corner and try and make it, or do I go straight on? Most of them have got it wrong there. Nathan Foster almost making the same mistake that we've seen from Tom Farton, from John Williams, which is indecisiveness and trying to make a corner when the brakes are locking and you're not going to make the corner. Instead, you're going to make your way to a concrete wall or a tyre barrier. But Foster there getting away with it and being able to turn the car around, albeit having to take a brief moment to turn it around there, a 3-point turn. And indeed, we did see in the UK Sim Racing Community Discord in the build-up today, many of our drivers quoting the infamous Austin Powers meme. And well, if you're wondering what that is, it's essentially trying to turn around a buggy car in a very tight corridor, and the running joke of having to put the car into the cart, I should say, into reverse gear and then first gear about 20 to 30 times in order to get it to turn just a fraction from its horizontal positioning down a very tight space. But thankfully, no such issue there for Nathan Foster, who does get his Empire Motorsport Porsche 963 turned very quickly. But as our drivers continue to make the way on, and Foster right now know that he's got a long way to catch up to John Williams. Or Amittrajit Ghosh, after his damage, he's back out on the circuit. And well, a bit of a nasty incident at turn number 5, but he's been able to survive it or thereabouts. And as he comes out of turn number 6, well, he's down in full place to GTP behind Nathan Foster as a result. And well, we've only got 2 drivers in the GTP class on the lead lap now, Matthew Sheraton and John Williams, although John Williams is just staying on the lead lap by approximately 7 seconds over Matthew Sheraton, who is still giving chase. And you will very quickly see Sheraton. Oh no, that's gone very wrong for Williams into the barrier as well. Coming out of turn number 6, hits the barrier, and well, right now John Williams towed to the pit lane there, where it's definitely going to confirm he will be finishing 3rd place in the GTP Championship. There's no way he can get a big score to dethrone Austin William Campbell for that runner-up spot, but it's going to be a frustrating moment there, and we'll see the effect simulations machine back out there, but he's exhausted one fast repair already, and I believe they've made the call to retire the car. They haven't got the parts to fix it another time, so the Cadillac driver is out of the race, and we have our first formal retirement of the race distance here at Belle Isle Park. So we go from 20 runners to 19, but meanwhile Matthew Sheraton, he's keeping it clean, he's keeping it away from the walls, and he is very much so now in the second half of the race distance. Yet to take his pit stop, but he's very much so on his course to his first race victory of the season. But as he carries on there, well, will there be any more twists in the tail? We'll have to wait and find out as we look to Rob Windsor, the man who has been trying to pick up some places after taking his early pit stop compared to his rivals. He's on the back of Jack Barker at the moment, gap being 3.23 seconds. Barker has also taken this pit stop quite recently, albeit a much shorter pit stop for the made for racing driver, only 16.5 seconds stationary compared to Windsor's 22 seconds. So Barker has been doing a lot of fuel saving, I suspect. Alternatively, if there was a dilemma of putting fuel in and potentially spending some more time in the pits to change an extra tyre, given the fact that tyres and fuel are done at the same time under IMSA regulations, and that's what's implemented here in iRacing, well, therefore Barker may be designed just to play a bit more conservative approach, take a shorter pit stop and just drive a bit more within his limits. And well, right now down in 5th, last of the GT3 Pro drivers, but could he be springing a surprise? Because he has been a bit of a strategist over the course of the season. He has had the smarts for the most part, and right now could he be deploying some more of those smarts before all is said and done? We'll have to see. As we say hello there to John Williams, who says, well, that was a great race in the YouTube chat, and sorry to see the retirement there, John. A bit of a frustrating one for yourself, I could understand. It all went a bit wrong, but it looked as though there it just came loose through turn number 6, but I'm sure you can fill us in on the full story there as to what happened with regards to that second major incident that put you out of the running. But as we do see Barker carrying on his way, well. Coming to our LMP2s, no change at the moment for James Ibram versus Øystein Herfjord. Gap still extending to the leader of the Dallara P217 machines, and Ibram now up to a 6-second gap over Herfjord as we look back to Herfjord here, making his way out of turn 5 and in towards turn number 6. He's carrying on with his pace, but the pace is definitely swinging in the favour of the class leader in the 903. As the 907 continues to play the game of hunting, but Herfjord right now and to keep his head down as into the pit. So look at my commentary booth window. It's James Conley for his second pit stop, albeit he'll be his one mandatory pit stop where he does need to take on that fuel. The first visit, of course, was for the fast repair to repair the damage from the start of the race. But as the drivers continue to roar the way out, a huge amount of repairs were needed there for John Williams' car. As he mentions in the YouTube chat, a full wall hit, 6 minutes required, 12 minutes of optionals repairs. Well, goodness me, you can understand why the retirement call's been made there, because at least those 6 minutes of repair work, that would put him a further 4 laps down, and it would put him firmly out of the running unless we were to see an absolute upheaval of where all of our GTP drivers are in this race. But we will see whether anything else happens over distance, because anything can happen, and it certainly does, as Richard Jones is into the pit lane. Car up on the jacks there for some tyre changes, and also the fuel will be going in there for the slow and steady racing Acura, and he was in the hunt at the time for second place in the GT3 AM class, and we'll have to see where that plays out for him. As meanwhile, that is John Daryl battling in there with Jack Barker. Looks as though Davis has had a bit of a slow run. In fact, he tucks into the pit lane, does John Davis. So I wonder whether perhaps the car was just running on fumes there, albeit we have seen some GT3 drivers go a bit longer than that. So I suspect there was a mistake. Returns 11 into 12. I'll have to try and find out what happened to him. As Barker and Windsor both came off him very quickly, and Richard Jones has come out, and look where his pit stop has put him. It's put him directly behind Windsor in the fight for second in GT3 AM. So Windsor's returned to that position as a result of some smart strategy, and Barker right now is really going to be the referee at the front of that field. He's going to dictate their pace unless Windsor can find a way through. And then they've got a further 18 seconds up to Darren Sharple. So Barker right now in a bit of a lonely run in last place of the GT3 Pro class. We'll have to see when Nathan Anstis falls into that when he takes his pit stop. He's yet to pit. But Barker right now could definitely be looking at a bit of an excursion in terms of fighting with GT3 AMs instead of class rivals. As Jones makes his way down the backstretch, then up towards turn number 7 he goes, in towards that braking zone very quickly indeed. Right now tucked behind the LMP2s and also the GTP that cuts its way through. Nathan Foster puts a lap on him, and Jones right now will just start to get himself back in the rhythm, back in the rhyme, and look to try and commit to the rest of the time over the race distance. But Emil Koopmans here having a little bit of a close quarters situation with regards to dealing with Nathan Foster coming up behind him, and also trying to get through the GT3 field, as he does get ahead there of Rob Windsor, and Nathan Foster still having to be a bit more patient as he makes his way on around, albeit it will be an opportunity there as into the pit lane does come Nathan Foster for his pit stop. That'll be his mandated pit stop rather than the one he had to take as an emergency, so it's going to be some repair work there done, as we do see Justin Barrera saying with regards to Øystein Herfjord up the pace. Well, Øystein Herfjord right now has started to bring that gap down a little bit more. Last lap from Herfjord, a 122.46. Ibram, a 123.18. But I suspect that will be the variance of traffic here between the two, because they are starting to come up on some more GT3s, with Ibram coming up on your third place GT3 of Nathan Anstis on the previous lap, and Herfjord to come up on him on this lap. And so that's going to mean it ebbs back and forth into the pit lane as well. So look at my commentary booth window. We do have Casper Brotno who's coming in from the leader GT3 Pro. So Anthony's doing the same as well. So I think the GT3 fuel tanks are coming to the end of their lifespan. And meanwhile, our LMP2s are making their way on through. James Ibram has taken his pit stop, also as Herfjord. Tom Farr, however, has yet to go into the pits. Here he is, your third place runner at LMP2. And I wonder how far he's going to get that fuel tank to last, because right now it's definitely gone the distance. And as he carries on here, a very close brush with the wall at turn at number 11, albeit doesn't quite make contact with the wall. Farr is absolutely going as far as he can. Well, I think, in fact, he must have had his pit stop, unless I'm mistaken. Well, we'll soon find out. Does he peel him in this time? No, he doesn't. So he carries on as he heads through the right-hander turn number 14 and on to another lap here. Ben Cullen with a very short pit stop earlier on for repair work on the car, but has yet to take his mandated pit stop. So I think we are still awaiting some pit stops here, but Farr, I would imagine, will be feeling as though third place is going to be on the cards for him over the distance. We're coming down towards turn number 3, and as he does, there's Cy Anthony in the Dragon Rezio Porsche 992 GT3 Pro machine. He's currently trying to chase after second place in GT3 Pro with Brogner, Sharples, and himself having all pitted. But actually, interesting enough, Anstey's lost out here because Darren Sharples, well, he pitted only 12 minutes into the race distance, but look at this. Darren Sharples has swung a 7-second advantage in his favour to Cy Anstey, and that was all through pitting early, getting himself some clear track. An absolutely brilliant job there. And, well, we did see a number of you, particularly Sean Cranny-Swash and Ryan Walker, calling it in the YouTube chat earlier on that Sharples was going for a bit of track position nice and early, give himself some clear track and go for the undercut. And that undercut may be working out magic here, because the 777 drive makes his way around through turn number 11. I think he'll be feeling himself lucky here as he comes out of the corner and knowing that right now everything is coming up his way, and this could be the 1-2 that escaped old dudes in cars at Spa-Francorchamps last time out, but they could be making that 1-2 magic today happen in reality. But we will see. We've still got some distance to go, and pit stops now bound for Nathan Anstis there, albeit obscured by the pit wall. Also James Foster is into the pit lane from the leader, G3 AM class. Where will he be versus Windsor? Well, there comes Foster on out. We look to the blimp camera. Well, we try to look to the blimp camera, and it's too foggy, so we're not going to be able to see. That's not the pollution of Detroit, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. It has cleared up over the course of the years, but that's just the low cloud we've got today. But Foster makes his way out. Where is Windsor? Well, Windsor's only just making his way across the timeline behind Jack Barker, so Windsor has lost out massively in the pit stop window by comparison with Foster. He's fallen a long way back. The gap between Rob Windsor and James Foster now is the best part of 10 seconds, so it has not played out at all for Rob Windsor. He's actually lost a lot of time, and, well, I think he's going to find out very shortly where he is. I think some frustration is going to creep in the fact he's not going to be anywhere near close enough to James Foster. And Foster right now, 20 minutes left on the clock. All he's got to do is get that car to the finish, as we see Barker having a bit of a brief brush with the wall coming out of turn number 4, but not too major. But I think Barker feeling some pressure as he tries to chase down Nathan Anstis, who's come out ahead of him. So Anstis in the end has been able to go with the overcut strategy of just going long, as it used to be referred to, and he's made his way back ahead of Barker as a result of it. So well done to him. The 96 McLaren here making some progress, and that Acura right now feeling even more lonely and unhappy with itself. But Barker here is going to try and tame the American stroke Japanese beast of the NSX Evo, and then look to make a bit more progress before all is said and done. But why, you ask? We refer to it as an Acura rather than a Honda, or for the simple reason, if you didn't know, whilst the original NSX was developed in Japan by Honda, the second generation NSX, which we do see here in its form of 2022, was developed by the American arm of Honda, or the Acura company, and that's why it's typically referred to as the Acura NSX rather than the Honda NSX, albeit in the United Kingdom and also in Japan, I believe the only two markets that did sell it as a Honda rather than an Acura, although on the European continent they may have done the same as well, albeit the car did not sell very well across Europe at all. I think the statistic was a staggering less than 50 cars sold across the entirety of the European continent, including the United Kingdom. As he rolls his way down towards turn number 3. Well, right now, using that 3.5 litre V6 engine there, he'll be hoping he can make a little bit more progress before all was said and done, because Windsor right behind him will be definitely trying to say to him, look, I know you're trying to chase after Anstis, but I've kind of got Richard Jones behind me. And there you can see Jones right now has also got a little bit of company, and that is Matt Edmondson behind him. And Edmondson right now will be thinking to himself, if only I could be on the lead lap with these cars, as we ride on board looking down over the top of the 176 McLaren 720S Evo. And for UK Sim Racing Buttons driver, he's just got to hope some magic happens here over the remaining 18 minutes. All the pit stops have been completed, minus your overall and GTP class leader of Matthew Cheverton for the Aztec Racing Machine. But right now, with all pit stops done and dusted, it's going to be a race to the finish. And now it really is going to be a race about track position and survival. And all the drivers here just trying to keep it together, keep it out of the wall over distance. And if anybody gets that checker flag, well, they all deserve a medal because of how challenging the circuit is. And well, Edmondson there been a bit liberal with curb usage through turn number 10 in towards 11, but gets away with it that time. But you can definitely tell that right now, everybody trying to push it to the limit and trying to hold on. We've had a bit of an incident for John Davies a bit further up the road from Edmondson, and he's running in full place in GT3 AM, a very lonely full place at the moment. But what exactly happened to the wrong stuff McLaren? Here's a quick replay to explain. Now, this was coming down towards turn at number 3. Is he just going to go deep here, or is the car going to go around? And under brake, he just goes deep, gets it stopped at the barrier just in time, and in the end, well, can get away with that given the anti-lock braking system. Has to try and find a gear, finds first gear in the end and rolls forward, but John Davis having a near scrap to the wall. And as he brings it back together, let's take a look to your live pictures once more. And Davis definitely there, getting away with a brush with the barrier. But as he makes his way on around there through turns 10 and 11, his next time will be Richard Jones, who's 50.5 seconds up the road. So he's got a way to go. But speaking of ways to go here, we look to Ben Cullen, who has Emil Koopmans for close company. as they come out of turn number 11 in towards 12. So Koopmans there 1.1 seconds behind, closing quite quickly in fact is Emil Koopmans as he makes his way up through turn number 13. We jump on board here with the 904 from the Netherlands, and into the pits comes Cullen. So we were expecting a pit stop for Ben Cullen. He's finally made it, and that will release Koopmans back into third place here as he charges through turns 1 and 2. Absolutely lovely flow of corners there, particularly using all the downforce that's available in the LMP2 class machine. And now down towards turn 3 he goes, and we'll be grateful he's got some clear track in front of him. But also I think he might be a little bit disappointed because I think he was itching for a bit of a battle there out on circuit, and that battle has been taken away from him. Indeed, Rob from us here tuning in as he heads in towards turn number 4. We'll shortly negotiate his way past the G3 AM machine of John Davies, and then onwards he'll go with the best part of 34 seconds between himself and Øystein Herfjord as he looks up the inside there, and Davies is a bit compliant as they roar the way through the right-hander. But coming from our third place LMP2 driver all the way back to our G3 Pro leader, well, right now Casper Rotner carrying on as he means to do so, and well, I think I'm allowed to say this in terms of results in real life, but otherwise if you don't want the results of the GT3 classification spoiled for you in the recent IMSA visit as of today to the Detroit downtown circuit, well, definitely mute this broadcast now or put your fingers over your ears. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's enough spoiler barrier for you. Well, right now Casper Rotner trying to emulate the success of Ford in real life, because they did take victory in the IMSA GT3 classification today in the Detroit downtown circuit, I do believe. And right now Casper Rotner trying to do exactly that and have the Ford Mustang live on then. Indeed, that absolute behemoth of front end on the American machine. You know it's coming with that lovely sonorous roar of that V8, and Casper Rotner right now trying to deal with the car plus a bit of what is engine tinnitus as he heads in towards another lap. But coming on down there, we've got some drama to talk about, in fact, as I believe... Oh, what on earth has happened there? He's reversing backwards, and Sharple's trying to get that car turned around. How on earth has he gone backwards in the first place? And where on earth is that? I've got so many questions. And that's turn 11 to 12 as the whole field comes on through, and they, just about avoid Sharple's car. My good lord, well, how on earth did he get there? Well, something tells me he's had a spin coming out of turn number 11 as the whole field segues the way through. Richard Jones now coming into the scene of incident, trying to pick his way past Jack Barker. So Jones is trying to fight his way onwards. In fact, he's found his way past Rob Windsor quite recently. So it's all kicked off very quickly in a short period of time. Barker there being passed by Jones. Rob Windsor now is going to try and go around the outside, at least on the cut. Barker, that's getting very, very tender there, as that is going to be one of our LMP2s, I think, tapping the rear of Barker's car. Down they go towards turn number 3, Barker on the outside, and we will see Windsor get ahead, trying to chase after Jones in all of this. And Rob Windsor right now just about has enough breathing room as Matt Edmondson a lap down is watching this right now, and I can imagine thinking to himself, well, this is absolute entertainment, but I want to be part of it. But as they head through the left-hander of turn number 5, well, that all comes to a brief halt, at least in terms of the entertainment factor, and also the drama factor of that, as Darren Sharples recovers, but Jack Barker there steps aside. And we also have Matt Emerson there stepping aside for one of our LMP2s. And I believe that might be our LMP2 leader who's gone for already. In fact, that's second place LMP2 of Øystein Herfjord, who is picking up the pace, in fact, versus James Ibram. That gap has come down by a sizable amount. It's come down by the best part of 3 seconds. I can imagine a lot of that is as a result of what happened at the end of the previous lap. But we need to try and understand what exactly happened. And, well, can we get a replay of it? And the answer is yes, we can. We begin with Richard Jones making a pass on Bob Windsor. And this was for second place in GT3 AM, and this happened down the run towards turn number 3. Jones was on the inside of Windsor, and in the end we're ball run out to turn number 2. Well, Jones wasn't going to say no to this opportunity, and Windsor being quite permissive in terms of letting him make the move, and I think focusing on the bigger picture later on in the race. But after that, what then happened to Sharples? Well, this is what happened to the old Duty Cars driver, making his way out to turn number 10, and turn number 11 I should say, into 12. And the rear of the car letting go. Can we get an on board of that? I think we might be able to, just to listen to what happened. Now let's listen in. Well, there's the tail. You may have heard he made another downshift on the apex of the corner while still under braking, and with that rotation, what it meant for Sharples is the rear of the car, the rear tyres overspinned as he dropped from third to second because of the change in revs, reversed into the barrier at that point. And at this point, he's just stationed in the car and suddenly identifies that the field is trying to make its way through. Everybody just about survives it. That explains that. That was James Ibram and James Foster coming on through, so that explains how the gap to Emil Koopmans, well, not Emil Koopmans, to Øystein Herfjord Sonny dropped down considerably. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a hair-raising moment between all of our drivers. And, well, thankfully, everyone able to get away with it, but that could have been very close to curtains there. And once they roar the way on through, with 11 minutes left to go plus the final lap. Well, that's some drama. There could be more still to come before all is said and done. Looking out the Conte booth window, pleased to see that the privateer Amittrajit Ghosh, his car's still being repaired. He is going to stay in it to win it and hopefully coming home on the podium if he can get that car back out before it goes 5 laps down or more. I do believe it's the rule and regulation. And as the drives carry on here, well, right now, tied arms, tied legs, and also a lot of thick cloud over the circuit. It's definitely going to be one of those situations whereby a lot of drivers now will be trying to keep their concentration as high as possible, as we do say hello to Andrew Jones there in the YouTube chat, who is cheering on at James Foster for GT3 AM glory, not just in this race, but also in the championship, and it is all coming his way at the moment. And glory also coming the way for Casper Brotner for Old Duty Cars, albeit I think he's going to be a little bit upset when he finds out, if he hasn't already, that his teammate, who was running in second, has suddenly relinquished second place as a result of a rather intriguing spin going through turn number 12. But still, it's gone wrong for one of them, and hopefully not for the other. We don't want to see that happen again, as the number 11 driver here just ekes his way through the left into the right, but looking to be in control at the moment, that Ford Mustang, as it roars its way around in really one of its home circuits, all the way to proverbial home, I do believe. And right now I can imagine that Ford will be smiling, but as he roars his way out turn 13 in towards 14, he's still got the distance to go, and he won't take anything for granted until all is said and done. We're coming back to Barker, and with now the car of Matt Edmondson close behind him. Well, Barker doesn't need to necessarily let Edmondson go, because Edmondson is a lap down. He may choose to do so if he feels though Edmondson is getting a bit too close and becoming a bit of a nuisance as they roar the way through 10 in towards 11. We jump on board then with Matt Edmondson, and we're just trying to keep it away from the walls and just seeing what can come all the way to the end of this race. Heading in towards turn number 12. The one thing I have to deal with here is the fact he has got some dirty air over the front of the car. You do see some counter steer there coming through turn number 13. And well, that counter steer, well, in fact, the counter steer, yes, being for the purposes of essentially dealing with some car oversteers. We do see Barker there letting Edmondson go. So in the end, Barker decided it's not worth my time keeping the GT3 AM car behind me. I'd rather follow it. I think Barker recognising at this point in time his pace not quite there compared to some of the cars around him. And well, he is one of those drivers who does race with his brain just as much as he does with his right and left foot, in the fact that if he does know a driver around him is running a lot faster, particularly if they're not in the same class, or even sometimes if they are in the same class but in a different kind of race, then Barker does let them go. He is a bit of a gentleman driver like that, despite his age, in terms of being one of the youngest drivers on the grid, although I won't reveal his age there for the purposes. Always keep youth where it is, as he roars his way in towards turn number 6. Well, right now the young adult carrying on all his way towards the end of the race as best he can. He does have a 25-second gap to Darren Sharples, and Sharples here after all the drama and a second visit to the pit lane. Well, they've done the repair work on the car. They have put that rear bumper back on, and Wolf Sharples right now, can he close down the time to Barker? I think the answer is yes, he could if he had all the time in the world to do it, but with 9 minutes remaining, if you include that final lap, I somehow get the feeling he's not going to make it. As they come on around here, we're looking back to GT3 AM leader James Foster, still leading very happily here as he makes his way through turn number 12 in towards 13. And we're not too many more laps to go here. Richard Jones' closest rival is 8.2 seconds back, and therefore he'll feel as though there's no pressure on him, but Foster will just keep delivering these laps one after another. He won't take his foot off the gas, because when you do, that can be just as much as off-putting as it is to have all those fears and worries in your ears. But as he makes his way down towards turn at number 3, well, Jones may be knowing that he can't do much to help his teammate prevent this man James Foster from taking home that crown if all works out. In fact, Rob Windsor, I should say, as we do see Richard Jones from Slow and Steady Racing making his way through turn number 3. And as he does so, we're still trying to chase after Nathan Anstis to take on 4th place in the GT3 category overall. But the 2nd place GT3 AM driver right now enjoying a good old scrap of his own. And with Rob Windsor just a little bit further back, and Windsor making his way through turn number 5 in towards 6. Well, he's on similar pace to Jones, and in fact, they're both on similar pace to Foster. But it's just one of the situations where Foster has earned himself the track position, and the confidence has come from there to just run away with things. But here comes Jones then, looking for an opportunity on Anstis down in towards turn number 7. Can he get the opportunity to come to its full fruition? And the answer is no, he can't. And Anstis keeps him there as we look back from the rear of the 3rd place GT3 Pro McLaren and the UK Sim Racing Irvine car right now, just trying to make sure Jones can't find a way to get side by side through any corner sequence. And through turn 7 through to 11, he doesn't have to be as worried. It's when you come out of 11 in towards turn 12, that's when your worries start to go up again. And in fact, you can go too wide here through the right-hander sequence of 12, 13 and 14. Both drivers incredibly close to the walls there. And well, as they roar the way on out and in towards the next lap, you can see Jones not quite close enough to be able to think of a move into turns 1 and 2. But coming out to, if he gets a good run, then he could have all the time in the world to look for a move in towards 3. As Anstis there falls off of the apex curve at turn number 1. That cost him a lot of momentum into 2. Jones, meanwhile, does get a better run, but look at this. The Acura just does not have that straight line speed compared to the McLaren. He gets close. He's going to think about it, but in the end, I don't think he's got enough length on the brakes to get the job done, even with strong electronics package. Well, right now, that Acura just not giving Jones enough here to be able to think about a move, and in the end, he can try to play a little bit of a psychological game, but that psychological warfare not perturbing Nathan Anstis in the slightest. As they head out of the corner, will we look from there back to your overall leader, Matthew Sheraton, only 5 minutes or so away now from his first race victory of the season, and Sheraton just not putting a foot wrong so far. He really is embodying the spirit today, is our leader of just don't make any mistakes and the race will come to you, particularly these street circuits. It's always the way. Understandably, of course, we do have a number of big names in at the GTP class absent, including champion Patrik Thomsen, who couldn't make this round, nor could Austin William Campbell, the runner-up. We've had the retirement of John Williams, but Matthew Sheraton, much like in the early rounds of the season, he has really been scrapping to be the 4th and 3rd best of the class, and right now, when you do take away the top 2 drivers, well, he's absolutely filling that gap, no doubt about it. Albeit John Williams and Nathan Foster both running strong races early on and starting to pull away, but then mistakes for both of them cost them dear, and well, Williams has had to retire and Foster is a lap down with repair work to the car. Amittrajit Ghosh has come back out of the pit lane, albeit 11 laps down as a result of all the repair work, but he will be classified as a finisher. I'm not sure if points will go his way, but drama, meanwhile, that is Richard Jones. And Jones, he's pointing the wrong way as well. Where on earth has he gone on around? I think that's on the back stretch for Richard Jones. That's enabled Rob Windsor to come through. Well, what on earth has happened to the 2nd place GT3 AM car? Where's the replay? Going across the timeline and in towards turn number 1. Jones then looking for a move on the inside. And, oh, goodness me. Now, that was versus Nathan Anstis. And Jones ain't going around. It wasn't the back stretch. It was turn number 1. Now, was Jones cut off at the front there? I think he would argue, yes, he was. Let's ride on board and listen in. We'll look for the move up the inside. Now, if there was contact, it would have been Jones tapping the rear of Anstis, but Anstis not wobbling coming out of turn number 1 suggests to me that perhaps was not contact, or it may have been netcode, but Jones in the end, he had nowhere to go. He would have been turning back onto the racing line, so Jones then having to tow to the pits. Alternatively, he would have been driving backwards into the pit lane. That's an absolutely horrible one for Richard Jones, and I can imagine he's going to be absolutely fuming. I'm sure him and Anstis will have a chat about it afterwards, but it looked as though there wasn't contact between the two of them, at least in that on-board angle, or if there was, it would have been the tiniest of taps, but in the end, well, Jones in that very tight inside line, that would have definitely changed the weight distribution of the car and sent the rear much more aggressively around compared to how it normally would have. A very odd one, that, and well, Nathan Anstis will take 4th place in GT3 overall now, assuming that Rob Windsor cannot get close enough to try and make a move on him in these late stages, but definitely a strange one, and it does cost Richard Jones what would have been his best result of the season, or at least matched to his best result of the season. Instead, he'll have to settle now for where he comes out of the pit lane after the tow and the fast repair work. In fact, I believe Jones has retired the car, in fact, so it will be a 6th place finish when all is said and done, albeit 3 minutes left to go. That's very unfortunate. The team are not going to be able to get the car back out there, so it's going to relegate him to a frustrating end to the season. But as Windsor makes his way in towards turn at number 4, more on his way on around right now. He'll be trying to chase down what is Anstis' car. In fact, closing up to it quite rapidly. Anstis right now. Perhaps there is more to it. Perhaps there was some damage to the back of this McLaren, albeit the car doesn't seem to be showing it. But the time deficit, in terms of how Anstis is losing time to Windsor behind, might be telling the other side of the story here as they make their way onwards. But hold up a second, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't got long left in this race. 2 minutes left on the clock. That's James Foster who's just had an instant, and that is at turn 7. The car's crawling along there as he steps aside. Surely not. Surely this is not going to fall out of the hands of DCW Racing driver. That car is struggling to turn. Now, is he just doing that to avoid contact? No, look at the suspension. The front right suspension has dropped on James Foster's car. Can he get it to the pit? He needs that fast repair to get back out there. Otherwise, this could suddenly swing back in the favour of Matt Edmondson, who is a lap down. But surely it's not going to end like this. Foster's just got to get it to the pits. He's not far away. Through turn number 12, in towards 13 he goes. Jack Barker coming up behind. Barker will see this McLaren's link
jumping along and step aside because Foster's going to pull into the pit, but he is going to make it there, and with 1.5 minutes left on the clock, where it's not going to be a victory for Foster anymore unless Windsor has an absolute nightmare, but James Foster right now, he'll be counting his blessings that he's been able to get this into the pit because that is huge. Well, we take a look back to what happened to James Foster, and here it is, ladies and gentlemen, making his way down the backstretch. He's been absolutely faultless all race, minus a brief slide early on, and as he made his way into turn 7, comes in a bit too hot, and the rear of the car lets go. Well, as he does start to move, oh no, and Emil Koopmans comes straight into the scene of the instant there, and well, that would be the damage that was picked up. Koopmans been able to get away with it, and now there's going to be a lot of question marks raised because there was a rule introduced going into this round, which is if you have a spin or an off a part of the circuit where it could block the road, then you are required to tow to the pits. Now, understandably, Foster may not have wanted to, and again, it will be down to the stewards and how they deem things, and if that is reported to the stewards, but you can imagine that right now there's going to be 101 questions going through his mind. Now, in terms of where Foster is, he's still in the pit lane at the moment. The car is still under repair work. Surely not like this. There's no fast repair on that car. Perhaps he had to use it when he came in earlier, and if so, Matt Edwardson right now could be coming away with this. We'll have to see what happens, but here's Edwardson then with 15 seconds left on the clock. Our leaders have just gone to their final lap, that being our GTP overall leader of Matthew Sheraton, so we're going to get one more lap effectively, but Edmondson coming around right now, he is a lap down. Does he take the position off of Foster this time? And the answer is yes, he will. So Sonny, Edmondson's up into third. No, it can't end like this. Surely for James Foster, who's been running so well. Well, Foster didn't get the pole lap, neither did Edmondson, and Foster is ahead by 3 points. So right now, this is not enough for Edmondson unless James Conley gets ahead of Foster. Then I believe it will be. Well, Conley's out there at the moment, and surely, well, Conley's in a car that's got a lot of damage as well. You can see the front bumper there. The headlights are not pointed straight. So Conley in a wounded McLaren, with also the rear of the car missing from it. Oh my good lord, it's all going to be about who's going to limp home here. Foster's still been serviced in the pit lane, and this is Sonny going to swing into the hands of Matt Edmondson. Now, who's got the fastest lap in the class is going to be the big question. Well, I'm not 100% sure at the moment. We'll try and find out when we can, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, it's absolute pandemonium here, and well, I cannot believe my eyes. There's very late drama in Detroit, and it could be that James Foster has just suddenly lost this with only 3 minutes to go. But meanwhile, one driver has been absolutely faultless all races. He makes his way through the final couple of quarters. Well, onwards towards turn number 15 he goes, and as he does, give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, because Matthew Sheraton is going to take his first and the last win of the season in the GTP and overall category by a whole lap over the rest of the field, and what a drive from him. We then do have a little bit of time before we do have our next class winner make the way through, but for Matthew Sheraton for Aztec Racing, it's been an absolutely faultless race and a deserved win at that as he makes his way on down. Then we come to James Ibram meanwhile, and right now, having picked up the fastest lap of the racing class, plus also pole position, plus also what is going to be the win. You're looking, ladies and gentlemen, your LMP2 champion provisionally for this season. Take a bow, James Ibram. You've done it at long last as he crossed the line there with a win to take to his fourth win of the season. And Øystein Herfjord will be the runner-up on circuit and in the championship there, as it's an Effect Simulations 1-2. Emil Koopmans was third in the class. We do have Rob Windsor who's already come through to take the GT3 AM victory there. And what a try from him as John Davis is going to be promoted to GT3 AM second place as we see him making his way on around there gently. But as he does, well, we come from Rob Windsor taking one of his only wins of the season to Casper Rotner with a big power slide there, making his way through turn number 12 towards 13 and heading up towards the finish line. Casper Rotner, you're already your G3 Pro champion. He's going to cap his season off with a win to bookend it all, and what a drive from him, has absolutely been faultless. And well, we will have in due course Sight Anthony coming around for the runner-up spot there in class and in the championship class as well. Still more to come, including a second place for John Davis' best result of the season as his car limps its way to line. I don't think he's got enough fuel, but he's going to get across it anyway. Well done from the Wrong Stuff driver, adding to his podium from Spa-Francorchamps only a week ago, and was his best result by no means least. And in Sight Anthony, well, he's going to be heading his way all the way up towards that timeline. In fact, Sight Anthony ducks into the pit lane there. He can't lose that position, or can he? I believe he can't, because Nathan Anstis finished a lap down with Jack Barker also lap down, so Sight Anthony will take that second place by default in GT3 Pro. Now, as we do have all drives making the way on round, we do have the big question of exactly how does GT3 AM end then? Well, we have to find out firstly who took the fastest lap in GT3 AM, and just double checking my statistics here, the fastest lap in GT3 AM went the way of none other than Richard Jones. So James Foster had a 3-point advantage coming into this round. He didn't take pole position. He's finished fourth to Matt Edmondson's third. No, he's finished fifth to Matt Edmondson's third. Don't quote me on this, ladies and gentlemen. I think Matt Edmondson may have stolen it away from James Foster. I think we're going to get that confirmed, however, before I make a big proclamation out of it. But it'll be a 4-point swing, if so, in the favour of Edmondson, and that would be enough to tip the scales. My good Lord, if so, that is not the way anybody wants it to end. But as we do see our LMP2 winner and second place who should make the way through, James Ibram in the end taking that crown provisionally, and well, what a drive from him today. And after everything that did go wrong in the last couple of rounds, well, this is the James Ibram who wanted to deliver, and he's delivered so with that victory. And the fastest lap plus the pole position in qualifying, well, he'll now know that when it mattered most, he got the job done versus his good friend, teammate and rival Øystein Herfjord. But what a crazy end to this race, ladies and gentlemen, no doubt about it. And let's take a look to the scenic view and those race results subject to any Stuart inquiries. And here we go. So after 60 minutes of drama in Detroit for round 9 of 9 in the UK Sim Racing Multiclass League Season 3, sponsored by VRS, Matthew Sheraton, your class and overall winner in our GTP machine, the 390 driver Aztec Racing, and the only GTP to finish on the top 3 overall podium. What a drive from him. No faults out there whatsoever, and taking his first win of the season with it. James Ibram, your run-up overall, and with it LMP2 winner for Effect Simulations Club Sport by 33.5 seconds, ahead of Øystein Herfjord, 5 seconds behind him, taking the runner-up spot there in the LMP2 class, and third place in the overall podium for Effect Simulations Carbon. It was a lap down to Emil Koopmans, who rounded off the top 3 in the LMP2 class for Effect Simulations Club Sport, and then we did have your runner-up in the GTP class, 5th place. A great recovery drive there for Empire Motorsports' Nathan Foster. It all went wrong early on, but he kept his head down and kept his head in it to win it, and in the end fought through to a 5th place. Ben Cullen was 6th, ahead of Tom Farr, and then it was a further 2 laps down, or 3 off of the leader, we should say, to your GT3 class finishers. And the head of them, Casper Rotner, your GT3 Pro winner for Old Dudes in Cars, and what a drive from the Ford Mustang driver to cap off his season. Not just with a championship crown from round number 8, but also a win in the final race of the day. Cy Anthony then taking the run-up spot of the GT3 to Dragon Rezio, and confirming himself as the GT3 Pro runner-up there with 2nd place in class ahead of Jack Barker in the championship standings. But before we get to Jack Barker in the result, well, there was Nathan Anstis, 3rd place overall and in GT3 Pro. What a drive for him for UK Sim Racing Irvine ahead of your GT3 AM winner Rob Windsor, and well, the 2 teammates together there, and Windsor will be absolutely ecstatic in taking that win. It's been a long time since we've seen him right up there at the top, with Jack Barker then finishing 5th in the GT3 overall and 4th in GT3 Pro ahead of Old Dudes in Cars Darren Sharples, the made for racing driver. In the end, didn't quite have the pace, but he had the consistency to survive the challenges of Detroit. Runner-up in GT3 AM was John Daryl, 14th overall for the wrong stuff, his best result of the season. What a drive from him. And Matt Edmondson, 3rd place in GT3 AM, with the early instant putting him a lap down. When in the end, he stayed a lap down, but he's brought it on home to 3rd place in the GT3 AM podium, and we believe that may be enough. Again, all drop scores need to be considered as well. That's why we say don't quote us on it, ladies and gentlemen, because it's anybody's guess at the moment. We will get confirmation of that when we can. Behind him was his teammate James Conley, and then James Foster with a late retirement for DCW Racing. It all went wrong right at the end there from the leader of the class, and if the championship has swung away from him, I can tell you right now, that is going to be absolutely heart-wrenching. Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing was your last finisher, 18th there as classified, because he was within 5 laps of the GT3 overall winner. And then we did have the unfortunate result for Amittrajit Ghosh, who did get to the end after the extensive repair work for a best part of 20 minutes. So he was 14 laps down as classified at the end, and he was ahead of John Williams, the sole retiree for Effect Simulations, 22 laps down, and in the end 2 major incidents, and that was all the Effect Simulations team could stand today. We're going on to the individual classes then, starting off with GTP, and as we can see here, Matthew Sheraton, your winner for Aztec Racing by a lap over Empire Motorsports' Nathan Foster, with Amittrajit Ghosh finishing on the podium there as classified, ahead of the sole retiree of John Williams for Effect Simulations. Coming to the LMP2 class meanwhile, and the story here was all about James Ibram just gradually pulling away little by little to take victory for Effect Simulations Club Sport ahead of his carbon sister team rival, Øystein Herfjord, who was 5.5 seconds behind at the end, and what a run between the two of them from every round in the second half of this season. We have seen the gap between the two be no greater than 10 seconds at the end of the race, and it just goes to show how evenly matched they have been. Emil Koopmans, your 3rd place finisher there, a lap down for Effect Simulations Club Sport, but be happy with another podium, ahead of Ben Cullen, and then Tom Farr there, rounding off the top 5 and all 5 LMP2s, the non-Effect Simulations machine there for DDK Racing Team, taking the 5th place honours.
Coming to the GT3 Pro class. And then we can see in the first of our two GT3 categories, Casper Brotner, the only driver to make it onto a 41st lap for the GT3s, and the old dudes in cars driver doing himself proud there with another win to cap off his championship crowning season. Si Anstey, runner up there, taking it a lap down ahead of Nathan Anstis for Dragon Rezio, and then the UK Sim Racing Irvine driver finishing ahead of Jack Barker for Maida Racing, where old dudes in cars Darren Sharp was being relegated to 5th with that late incident costing him the opportunity to make it a 1-2 for his team. Then coming on to the GT3 AM class, last but by no means least, and as we can see here, Rob Windsor, your winner through the late surprise in turns in the race, and will Windsor picking up the pieces where it fell out of the hands of so many other drivers, including James Connolly and James Foster. So the UK Sim Racing Irvine driver taking victory by 1 minute and 11 seconds over the wrong stuff's John Davies, who takes his best result of the season with 2nd place, and Matt Edmondson there, well, staying in it to win it and taking 3rd place for UK Sim Racing Button, ahead of James Connolly, his teammate, and 2 further laps down, James Foster for DCW Racing and Richard Jones, where he met his demise later on in the race, but he'll still be classified 6th place finisher for Slow and Steady Year Racing. So there's all the results, ladies and gentlemen. But of course, we do have plenty of questions as to who will be the champions. We will get you the updates when we can as to who your champions are, and we will be getting the points with regards to it, and we'll find out in due course, no doubt about it. But first, before we do get onto our post-round interviews and to give you all those updates, we do have the one big question, which is our raffle draws for the Virtual Racing Score giveaway. Of course, thank you to Virtual Racing Score for the giveaways over the course of this season. And to give you those, well, let's come then to our giveaway screen. Now, of course, for these final subscription draws of the season, for the 3-month and also the 2-month draws, they are all around which of our drivers have raced all 9 rounds. It doesn't mean they have to have finished them. They've just had to be on the grid for all 9 rounds. Now, we do have a few names here today, which are based on the first 8 rounds. However, we're going to remove some because they weren't on the grid, and that includes Austin William Campbell, so he's removed. We also do have there, Øystein Herfjord was on the grid, as was Tom Farr, James Ibram, Jack Barker, Casper Brotner, I should say, not Casper Brotney. That's a combination of 2 names. So Casper Brotner, James Connolly, Sean Cranley-Swash wasn't on the grid, so he becomes ineligible. James Ackland was not on the grid either, but Darren Sharples was. So therefore, all of these drivers are eligible. Let's spin the wheel and find out who's going to be taking them home at the 3-month subscription draw. And well, Jack Barker will be taking on home the 3-month Virtual Racing Score subscription as a result of that giveaway. Well done to Jack Barker, and he will be contacted by the UK Sim Racing admins in due course with regards to how he can claim his prize. But then we come to the 2-month subscription draw. Exactly the same deal, however, we replace the list of names with all those we've deemed eligible, and then we remove Jack Barker because he's won the 3-month draw. It would be unfair of him to win another draw as well this evening. So let's spin the wheel, albeit not necessarily outside the YouTube chat, but at least in the 3-month and 2-month subscription draws. So let's spin the wheel and find out who's going to be taking on home a 2-month subscription. And it's going to be James Ibram, who doesn't just take home the LMP2 crown, but he also takes home a 2-month Virtual Racing School subscription. So congratulations to James. And then lastly, we do have the question of the 1-month draw, and that's for anybody in the YouTube chat. So let's come to that and choose a winner. There's all our names on screen. And the winner is going to be, well, Jack Barker's going to be taking on home that as well, because he's at Sir Bottlejob in the YouTube chat there, and, well, jumping on in and taking that on home. So congratulations to Sir Bottlejob for taking on home the 1-month draw as well as the 3-month draw from earlier on. So that are going to be our final VRS subscription giveaways for this season, ladies and gentlemen. Well done to all of our participants. And, well, of course, well done to you guys and girls tuning via YouTube if you have taken one of the draws away of you for the purposes of this season. But that means we're going to take a brief pause now. We're going to be away for about 7 to 8 minutes. But when we do get back, we'll have our post-round interviews with our drivers, and we'll get to hear their thoughts on the final race of the season here at the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle Circuit. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. We will see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And we have got plenty of interviews lined up this evening. In fact, we may even have a fourth on the way in due course, and we'll give you an update on that when we can. But we're going to be kicking off, and let's get straight to it with our GT3 AM champion. It is confirmed provisionally, ladies and gentlemen, by a single point. Matt Edmondson has taken the GT3 AM crown with that late twist in the tail. He joins me now, straight into the interview room. Matt, I don't think anybody can quite believe how it's all ended, but come at the end of 60 minutes of race in Detroit and plenty of drama, you are our provisional GT3 AM champion by a single point. I mean, compared to how it started and now how it's finished, how does that resonate with you?
I genuinely, I wasn't expecting it. Like after my stupid incident early on in the race, I almost parked it, in all honesty, and well, I didn't, and somehow the luck flowed in a different direction, and it's a very sort of like me way to have won that, in that it all seemed to fall apart, and then just almost more by luck than anything else, I've managed to get that single point. But commiserations to James. Like he's driven absolutely fantastically all season, and I'd argue the majority of the time he's driven better than I have. So he thoroughly deserved to be up there and win it this season.
Well, in the end, it didn't quite work out for James the way he expected, and I appreciate you giving credit to your rival. I'll wear it's due in terms of his performances. But focusing on yourself a little bit, coming into this round, you were 3 points behind after some difficulty at Spa-Francorchamps, and really a second half of the season that has not sided with you at any point, whether it's been through lady luck, misfortune between yourself and other drivers, etc. So how did you set yourself up going into tonight? Was it just take this round as it goes, or did you really go out there and think to yourself, right, I've got to get the job done?
I in the back of my mind, it was very much, I've got a job to do and I've got to do it. And I basically said that I realistically, to really get it, I knew I had to try and get pole, win, and get the fastest lap. If I got all three of them, then it was definitely going to hit. And I didn't get pole, and then didn't get fastest lap, but somehow, with how it felt, just because of how crazy the race was, we got the result that wasn't expecting. So it was certainly a very much I need to get on with it, but it was one of those rounds where I was sweating in practice from the nerves, in all honesty. So that probably didn't help.
Oh, goodness me. Well, definitely a lot of pressure on you, no doubt about it. And speaking of pressure, I mean, just take us through the pressure that must have gone through your mind when it all went backwards very early on and you suddenly found yourself a lap down before the racing had really got underway.
It was, yeah. I'd hoped at the start, because James Connolly, teammate, was between me and Foster on the grid in terms of places. So I was hoping that he would provide a bit of a wedge in the middle. And he said afterwards that was what he was hoping to do, but he unfortunately was a bit slow off the start, which in his lane, which led to Foster being behind. So I just wanted to try and catch up to Richard, who then had a spin, and then Sai had a spin in front of me, and then it was only like a few laps later where I had the wobble that let James get past me. And then very shortly after, James had a wobble through 5. I thought there was a gap on the inside. Looking afterwards, there probably really wasn't. So I took myself out in all of that. I was hoping to drag it back to the pits, but the car was completely toast, so I had to tow it. And I thought, in all honesty, that it was over. I was very tempted at that point to just just quit and park it for the day, but I thought, well, just in case, I'll just keep plodding around, see what I can pick up, because it was early in the race, it was a long race, and if anything happened, well, you never know what happens in one of these races, and certainly around this circuit, because it's such a tricky circuit. One false move and it will eat you.
Oh, 100%. You're spot on there in how tricky this circuit is. And I can only imagine as time went on, understandably, that battle in your mind in terms of got to stay in it in case something happens, but nothing is happening. In terms of your strategy, obviously you were a lap down, trying to catch up as much as possible. And we did see you over the distance catch up to the tail end of the GT3 pack. But even then, I can imagine you must have been in two minds. You wanted to fight past the guys who are a lap ahead of you, but they're slower than you. But also you don't want to fight them too hard in case you end up in the wall again.
It's a very tricky situation, that, because you don't want to ruin their race. There were a couple of people like John Davies who, credit to him, he saw me coming up and just let me go. I didn't really have any other sort of fights, and I tapped the wall a couple of times towards the end, so I had a bit of wheel damage, so I let Rob Windsor go because I knew he was a bit quicker, and I let Richard go. Probably not as easy as Rob, just because I knew there was a bit of a battle in the championship there. But yeah, and then James, my teammate, had some form of incident as well, which dropped him behind me, and then whatever happened to James happened, and yeah, that's how it ended. So it was just one where I thought, well, I need to keep pounding around because I couldn't remember what the gap was to the guys behind, and Algarve would come into play if I didn't go. If I just quit, and that was a really bad round. So I thought that might even lose me second. So I thought, keep going, see what points we can drag.
Well, it's a good thing you kept going, like you say, because look what it did at the end of the day. And I mean, in terms of finding out that James Foster had the incident, when were you told about it? Or when did you find out? Did you know in the final 2 minutes of the race, or did you only find out afterwards when you looked back at the results and saw that suddenly you finished ahead of him?
When I gained a position on my overlay, I was a bit confused. So, because I knew that there was quite a gap to the next car, so I couldn't, unless they'd gone in, I couldn't have overtaken them on track. And when I saw the position change and then saw that it was James behind me, I was thinking, okay, has he had an incident? And then suddenly Connolly jumped above James, and I was thinking, right, okay, this is a bit of an interesting situation. I don't know what's going to happen here, so I just thought, well, I'll keep going and just wait to see what it was, because if James had picked up the fastest lap point, we'd have been tied, so it would have gone on result count back, and I'd have I reckon James would have probably got it on that. But yeah, it was one of those where I didn't know until I actually finished the race as to where it would be. So
We did an absolutely crazy ending there, and not knowing until the very end as to what would be. But afterwards, of course, we've already asked how do you feel about taking the crowd, and I mean, that surprise. But when you look back on it, it's been such a close fight between yourself and James Foster over the entirety of the season. In the early stages, it looked as though it was really your championship to lose in a way, albeit not without the threat of the likes of Rob Windsor, Richard Jones, and also Foster in the distance. But then the second half of the season, things just haven't gelled as much, and that's where Foster has come back and through. I mean, how would you rate your season?
I think you pretty much summed it up. First half, if you ignore Algarve, if you ignore round one completely, the first half, Fuji through to Monza, was really good. Like, I think Fuji just keeping the car in difficult conditions. Imola not quite having the pace of Foster, but still managing to get that second. Monza, where probably is one of the best drives I've done, like, for a long time. Despite the incident, despite my spin at the start, still being able to come right back through to win and get the full points. I think I can look back on those and be really proud, and then I can look back on the next 4 rounds and look at a lot of things that I need to improve, and places where some were unfortunate, some were my own doing. So, like, it's really sort of come down to the wire, and as I say, James has been quite the the competitor all season. And it's been quite fun to have that battle all the way through and right up to the wire. I think it's made it really interesting.
Well, it definitely has made it interesting, like you say, and coming out the other side of it all, you've become a champion provisionally, but what a way to do it in the end for the UK Sim Racing Button team. And I have to ask, of course, with this championship complete, can we expect you on the grid for Season 15 of the GT3 Championship to defend your honour and your title?
We'll see. I hope to. I need to double check where it lies with all the work shifts and things, but I think it will be. I'll hope to be on the grid with my fellow UKSR teammates. It's going to be an interesting one because, of course, we've got the new GT3 tyre model coming. So I think it's going to be that start of the season is going to be a learning curve for everybody. So we will see what happens. But yeah, hopefully I can be back on the grid for next season.
Oh, well, without a doubt, we'd love to see you back on the grid for the future season. And with that new GT3 time model, like you say, it's only going to open things up even more. But with that, Matt, and just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
A big shout out to all the stewards that have worked tirelessly over the season. It's not easy doing a lot of multi-class protests, but they've all done really well. Shout out to Sai and all the other admins at UKSR for organising and putting this on. Shout out to all my teammates. All three of them have driven really well this season. They deserve where they've placed. They've all shown, especially James Connolly. He's come on leaps and bounds this season to get those wins. And of course to yourself, Paul, for coming back and giving us another amazing broadcast as per usual.
Oh, well, thank you, Matt. And a huge thank you to you for being out there week in, week out, giving it your all, and in the end, coming away with the ultimate prize in the GT3 AM class. May not have been the way you expected it to happen, but then again, these things never always happen the way anybody expects them to. But you are our provisional GT3 AM champion. Enjoy it, savour it, have it all settle in, and we hope to see you on the grid again for Season 15 of the GT3 League. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from an absolutely surprised, shocked, I think you could insert plenty of adjectives from the Cambridge English Dictionary into the description of Matt Edmondson and how he feels right now. But he's done it. That's not the way anybody expected him to do it, but that's the way it has played out today in Detroit. And, well, it has been a crazy end today. And admitting there that part of him said, just retire the car, and another part of him said, stay out there and just keep doing the laps because you don't know what happens until you get to that checker flag. And in the end, the angel on his shoulder won out, and, well, fortune would have it all the way in the final 3 minutes. And he didn't realise it until he crossed the final line and was seeing that his relative was showing he jumped ahead of Foster. What a surprise. Also talking there a little bit about the contact between the two of them at turn at number 6 that saw him escorted to the barrier and then subsequently have to go a lap down with the tow, and saying there, in regards to that contact, it was a move that he saw that he shouldn't have really gone for, but he went for it at the time, and that's when everything's on the line. Given the way the race started out for him, it didn't work out, and all that advantage he created in qualifying very quickly slipped away, and therefore the eagerness to try and find a way to salvage that advantage early on, that's what led him to that decision. But still, that decision can be what it may. Well, in the end, for the UK Sim Racing Button driver, he's made it work out. And, well, we do hope to see him back on the grid for Season 15 of the GT3 League and see if he can defend his crown over the course of what should be a very interesting season for all the right reasons. But with that, we now come on to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to announce as well, we will have our GT3 AM runner-up, James Foster, join us for an interview later on this evening. So we're going to get to hear from him and hear his perspective on what has been an absolutely brilliant season-long battle with Matt Edmondson. We're going from our GT3 AM champion, and we must now come to our LMP2 champion. We're going to come to James Ibram and hear his story as he joins me now in the interview room. Well, James, after 9 rounds, and the last few rounds really have not entirely swung your way, you've made them swing back your way today. You are LMP2 champion provisionally, and what a way to do it in style. For having a perfect evening, fastest lap in qualifying, fastest lap over the race, Oh, and more importantly, the victory as well over the race distance in Detroit. I mean, at the hardest circuit as well on the calendar, arguably, you've done it. How do you feel?
Hi, Paul. Wrong James, but
Wrong
I'll
James.
take it.
Whoopsie. We'll get the correct James and we'll get you back in the boat, James. My apologies. Oh, goodness me. Apologies, ladies and gents. We've got the correct James now. We went to the wrong James, and, well, goodness me, we have a gaff on the night, but let's not have a gaff here. James, I'm going to repeat what I just said moments ago. Momentum didn't quite go your way over the course of the distance midway through the season, but it has swung back your way today, and what a way to settle the crown. Taking the fastest lap in qualifying, the fastest lap in the race, and most importantly, the win as well. I mean, you must be absolutely ecstatic to end on a high.
Yeah, that was pretty much an almost perfect race. I did hit the wall quite hard actually at one point just before I came into the pits, but barring that one little mishap, that was pretty much ran to the plan straight from the off. So yeah, no, that was as good as it could have been. It could not have really gone any better than that.
Oh, indeed. It could not have gone any better than that, like you say. And just take us through, I mean, going into this round, we know that typically you've been out yourself and Øystein. You've been the slightly faster driver. However, that's not made you complacent by any means. But did you practice any differently coming into this round in Detroit, given the gravity of the situation and the change of the circuit?
Yeah, as soon as the round finished at Spa, I changed. I went out and did a practice session at Detroit and started working on the setup. I completed it. I think, well, the version I've used tonight, I sort of made the final tweaks yesterday evening. So yeah, I went into a lot of prep for this race. So lots of officials, lots of practice sessions with other cars on track, lots of solo sessions, looking at telemetry as well, seeing where I can improve, go faster. So this was one I put a lot of time and effort into, in comparison to some of the other ones. But yeah, so this one was very well prepared for, very thorough.
Well, you came into this one absolutely prepared and ready to go, and, well, straight off the bat in qualifying, taking pole position in the end, and not by a small margin either, doing it by the best part of a couple of attempts. I mean, that must have immediately made you think, you know what, I'll come into this round a couple of wins down on my rival, but I've got one bonus point in the bag, now I just need a couple more.
Yeah, qualifying was key. If getting that bonus point meant that the only thing I could allow Øystein to get the fastest lap, and it wouldn't affect anything. Whereas if he got pole and fastest lap and still finished second, I would lose the championship. So qualifying was critical. I did actually make another mistake in qualifying, where my first flying lap I did actually go into the barriers at turn 7 very gently, so I didn't damage the car, but I did oversteer slightly and sort of touch the tyres. So yeah, qualifying was quite tense, and I didn't get a good lap 3 either, so I only improved I think it was like half a tenth. And then Øystein went and does a 0.5, so I knew I had to just make sure to get that lap right, but I was already on for a 0.2, which I think I did end up getting at the end. So I was once I'd rounded the last corner and I knew where I was at, I was nice, relaxed, and knew that the all I had to do now was keep it on track and sort of follow the game plan, really.
Well, going into the game plan then for the race, we saw in the early stages yourself and Øystein really just gradually pulling away from the rest of the LMP2 field. And these pictures from the opening half of the race really go to show that you had a slight pace advantage over distance, only by a couple of attempts a lap at most. And I think it would just come as much down to the traffic and how it fell for you both as it would with regards to just that consistency. I mean, just take us through it from yourself. You're the leader of the two of you. You're trying to run away, but then eventually traffic's going to appear. I mean, how do you negotiate that? What is your priority in terms of positioning yourself on the circuit?
So I mean, we'll go with the sort of mindset on the off. I don't know exactly what Øystein's strategy was, but mine was to save a bit of fuel every lap. The sort of fuel target was about 2.06 litres per lap. whereas normally if you're going flat out, you hit just under 2.2, so saving about a liter and a little bit, not a liter, 0.1 of a liter ish per lap was sort of the target. So there's a lot of lifting and coasting into particularly turns 1, 3, and 7. So I was just kind of managing the pace, seeing what Øystein was doing, and I think he was saving as well. To be honest, he wasn't gaining much in the braking zone, so I think he was sort of on the same strategy as I was. And then with regards to traffic, it's just one of those where you've got to make sure you see them up the road, you time it right, so you make sure that you're not doing anything too late or risky. So if you think it's going to be touch and go, you just lift off the corner before to just give yourself a bit of extra room to make sure you can get better exits, or set yourself up to go up the inside of them on the corner exit. And thankfully there wasn't really too much traffic. There was a little bit, obviously. There was the 11 GT3s. Didn't really come across any GTPs on this race. The leader didn't come around to lap us, and I didn't have any sort of back markers to really deal with, because the pace differential isn't very much here, so you can easily have GTPs slower than LMP2s, which I have experienced in some of the IMSA races during the week. So, but it might as well just, from my perspective, been LMP2 and GT3, because I didn't really see any GTPs on track.
I see, and thank you for the insights there with regards to both your strategic approach and also the traffic management. And over the distance, whilst we did see Øystein come in first, we saw you eventually make your pit stop and emerge out there about 5.5 seconds ahead. There were a couple of moments where that gap came drastically down to just shy of 2 seconds. But I want to ask before all that big slide and that tap to the wall we saw coming out of turn at number 12, I mean, did that put your heart almost out of your mouth at that point? Because from our view on the broadcast, it looked as though it was a very close to a race-ending shunt.
I just braked about 50 feet, because that's what the boards on the track are. They're feet markers rather than meter markers, because we're in the US and freedom units. But I braked just a little bit too late, because I was looking actually at the gap. So Øystein had just pitted, and I was looking at the gap where I could pit into traffic. So I was debating whether I would box that lap or the lap after. Ended up boxing the lap after, but yes, that was a little bit of heart and mouth moment. But it probably looks worse than it is. I don't think I actually got that much damage from it. I think I got a little bit lucky with that. But I think, yeah, overall, I think me and Øystein had pretty much the same idea on strategy, is that the first pass round on GT3s, we weren't going to box, and then the second pass round we were going to, and I knew that the sort of pit loss time was about 35 seconds, so I kind of waited until I saw that there would be a gap of 35 seconds, that when I came out into, I'd be ahead of a pack, which is exactly what happened. So Øystein was behind about 3 GT3s and a GTP, and I came out just ahead of the GT3s, so it worked out. It worked out very well. So I'm quite glad I sort of figured out what that strategy would be.
Well, the strategy worked out nicely, got you the track you wanted, and then over the race distance, you just gradually maintained that gap and opened up a little bit more, and come the end, finished 5.5 seconds clear of your championship rival. I mean, it must have felt nice. I mean, take us through the feeling, in fact, as you came to the finish line for the final time, to see that checker flag, and to see this is the one race where the results did not get away from you.
Relief. Yeah, I was still expecting something to go wrong, a GT just a bit in front, or I don't know, me to do a small mistake like I'd done earlier in a race. So I was a bit worried that I didn't fuel up enough, because my stop was a bit shorter than Øystein's. I refueled about 3 litres less than he did, so I was a little bit cautious on fuel. But I had about 1.5 litres to spare at the end. So yeah, once I guess the last couple of laps, I realised I had enough fuel to get there. I kind of opened it up to I think putting my fastest lap right on the last lap of the race. So yeah, I think it was just relief getting there.
Well, a huge relief. I can hear it in your voice, that relief. And now that you are our LMP2 champion provisionally, I mean, what's next for yourself? Can we potentially expect you on a GT3 class grid next season, or are prototypes your main thing?
I'm not opposed to driving other classes. I've mostly just driven LMP2 and LMP3. I've done some radicals in the past, and obviously I've done GT3 and GT4 stuff. I'll probably see what the new tire model is going to be like. If it's interesting for the GT3s, I might well give it a go and see what it's like. Might even explore into GTP territory. So I don't really want to leave the LMP2. It's good fun, but the car is getting kind of dated now. And I mean, the participation is still there in it. But I feel like I've hit a sort of peak in the car that I can't really progress further until I maybe learn something from another category. So maybe I'll come and do GT3s, but I wouldn't expect anything from me in GT3s. I'm not as good in the low downforce stuff. So if I'm just sort of vaguely competitive towards like maybe the front half of the field, then I'll consider that good pace for me.
Well, I think we'd definitely love to see your GT3s, particularly with their new tyre model that's coming the way as well, and see how you acclimatise to a car a little bit less downforce, but also a little bit more car variety in a way. But still, from variety, whether it be your rapid results out on circuit and LMP2 or other class of machines, just before we do let you go, James, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to my parents and my sister for watching most of this season, if not all of it. So they've been there supporting pretty much every race. Well, they support every race even if they can't watch it. And give a shout out to the team, and obviously in particular, obviously shout out to Øystein, but also commiserations to him for putting on incredible performance and so consistent all season that every time I made a mistake he was there, and he kept that the whole championship very interesting and alive for a long periods of time. And genuinely, this last race could have gone either way. Had there maybe been a few more cars on track, there might have been a little bit more chaos. I might have been caught up in it, and it could have, genuinely, this race could have gone either way. And I'm glad to have had such a competitive season here. All the way up to the last race, it was tense. It was hard fought. So a big shout out to Øystein for sure, and for you as well for broadcasting every race. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I'm going to enjoy watching this one back as well.
Well, James, likewise, we have to give a big thank you to you for joining me for multiple interviews over the course of the season. It's been great to hear the insights from both yourself and Øystein in terms of that rivalry and the different perspectives you've both had week in, week out in going racing and taking your championship fight to the wire. But as they say, there can only be one winner, and that winner being yourself. And congratulations to you on the LMP2 championship crown. And whether we see you on the grid in GT3 next season or in a later grid or see you in other series, wish you the best luck in your future endeavours. Well done again, my friend, and most importantly, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. You as well.
So here and there from James Ibram, ladies and gentlemen, the correct James that time, and I do apologise once again for having James Foster brought in originally entirely on myself in managing those interviews. But enough about my mistakes. Let's talk about a man who didn't make any mistakes today. James Ibram, absolutely flawless. Minus that brush with the wall. You could say it was a brush with a near-death experience there. But thankfully, nothing more than just a tap, a little bit of damage, but nothing that stopped him on his way to a victory race. But along the way, pole position in qualifying, a brilliant job in qualifying to take that. And mentioning there as well about the lack of a pace differential between the LMP2s and the GTPs in terms of their race pace and also qualifying, and cognizant of the fact the only traffic management really you'd have to worry about would be with the GT3s, of which he worked out to aplomb, worked out the strategy as well, and by taking that later pit stop, only a couple of laps later compared to his rival Øystein Herfjord, as there we see the infamous barrier brush incident that Ibram went through, albeit a very different angle there, not really revealing well, in the fact he managed to make the strategy work out, brought
bought himself the space, and with that was able to convert it into enough space to keep him happy on the way to victory. And talking about the entire season, the fact that the leaps and bounds that both he and Øystein have come on, and in the end, well, only one can be the winner, but a great fight. And well, if we'd had more cars on the grid today, could it have gone a different way? There's so many what if questions, but for James Ibram, the one question we do have with certainty is that he has become your LMP2 champion in that brilliant title fight. And indeed, the Effect Simulations team will be very happy with that one, including Justin Barrera there, cheering on James and saying awesome job to him in LMP2, and good to see him get the win after IMSA Endurance, and indeed a well-deserved win at that. Now, we unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, will not be able to bring you our third interview with John Williams for Effect Simulations in the GTP class, and that's due to the fact, unfortunately, he's had to go away for the evening. Nothing bad or anything along those lines, but he's had a few personal things to attend to. But we do want to give him a special mention in the fact that he did bring on home in the end 4th place in the class, albeit with the retirement in the GTP, so he was classified as a non-finisher, but we're going to say 4th place there, just to be fair to him, for being on the grid today, and he is your 3rd place finisher in the GTP Championship. And congratulations to him, really being second best after Patrik Thomsen, the champion, and Austin William Campbell. But now we then come to our final interview this evening, and we go from getting the wrong James initially to now getting the right James, because we are going to be talking to James Foster as he does join me in the interview very shortly. And well, let's bring him on in and talk about what has been this battle for the GT3 AM crown. Now, as we get the right James this time, and I do apologise to you, James, very embarrassed myself to do this, but enough about my embarrassment. It hasn't worked out quite the way you've wanted it to this evening, and completely understand the emotions are high. It all fell apart with 3 minutes to go, but firstly, how are you feeling after the fact? Now that you've had a few minutes to cool down, how's it settling for you?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just a bit disappointed in myself. I sat in my rig for about 10 minutes with my head in my hands, but other than that, I'm all good.
Well, coming from a head in the hands moment of disappointment, let's talk about some more of the positives. Firstly, coming into tonight, it was all going to be on the line. You were leading by 3 points. It didn't go quite right in qualifying. 4th place in class on the grid. What happened in qualifying?
It's not a track I've ever raced before. I bought it a few weeks ago and I've been running laps slowly on it, so I just didn't have the pace. I was just trying to work on consistency, to be honest.
Well, may not have worked out in qualifying, like you say, because the unfamiliarity with the track and just learning the consistency. But what a consistent start you had. Probably the best start of any of our GT3 AM runners. 2 places gained right at the start and very quickly breathing down the neck of Matt Edmondson to then overtake him and to start running away with things.
Yeah, Matt's always been it's been a good race, I must admit. So he made a slight error. I managed to get up the inside and a slight bit of door banging from both of us, but it was all in good spirits. And then sort of later on, a few laps later, I had that slight error, which led to that incident that we had. But it was good close racing from both of us, and has been all season.
Oh, 100%. Great racing between the two of you, like you say. And with regards to that instant between the two, I mean, Matt admitted only moments ago in his interview the fact that he felt as though it was a gap that he should never have really gone for. I mean, from your perspective, you came off much less hurt by it, but just your view on what happened?
Yeah, kind of echo what Matt said, really. I tried not to slide back across the track, and obviously that gap was always closing. I was never going to put in a protest or anything like that. I just felt pretty bad for Matt that we weren't going to battle till the end.
Oh, indeed, unfortunate there, but from a battle that wouldn't go to the end on circuit at least. Then coming on to your wider race, leading for quite a sizable period of time. However, there were a number of moments where you found yourselves with a few GT3 pros around. I mean, did that change the way you looked at battling with them, given the fact that I can imagine on a non-championship defining round, you probably want to have a bit of scrap with the pro drivers, but in this one at least, everything's on the line.
Yeah, initially I had Cy Anthony pretty close behind me, but then I did notice that Rob Windsor was quite close behind him. So at that point, unless he went for something, I wasn't really going to let him pass, because obviously Matt and Rob being teammates, I didn't want to put myself in that position. Sadly, however, when there was a bit of a gap and I did try to let Cy through, admittedly, it didn't quite go to plan. I did then put myself in that position.
Oh dear. Well, you put yourself in a bit of a challenging position, but Rob may have been close for a bit, but in the end he wasn't quite able to get one leg ahead of you in terms of the race distance. And then it came to strategy. We did see a number of drivers try to go for early pit stops, but not yourself. You ran the fuel tank pretty much to the limit there. Was that always the plan?
Yeah, I like to most of the time do that unless I can see anything gaining in tyres. But to be honest, I haven't changed tyres for the entire season apart from wets to dries.
Now, I've got to ask, with regards to not changing tyres, and perhaps it might be a DCW question, has the team got the budget for an extra set of tyres? Because I can imagine you've used that set of tyres for 9 rounds now.
No, it's all gone on steak and wine.
Oh, brilliant. Well, coming from a joke into something perhaps a little bit more serious. So, carrying on in the race, only 3 minutes left on the clock, and I hate to ask it, but what happened right at the end there?
It's just a lapse of concentration from me. Obviously, with a few minutes left and knowing the situation at the time, I just think my mind got the better of me. Just braked probably 2 or 3 meters later, which then led me into that spin. And then it's the heat of the battle stuff. You're in the middle of the track. I try to get out of the way as quick as I can, which obviously led it to a closing gap to then be collected by the prototype, which I've sent him an apology for.
Well, that's absolutely fair, and I appreciate your thoughts on the situation there. But still, one thing that I think many will agree with, the fact that you managed to get the car turned around despite the collapsed front right suspension and get it to the pit lane. And from what I'm hearing, you may have had a fast repair available, but didn't have it active.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I could have swore blind on the way back to the pit. I activated my fast repair, but then I think in my haste of trying to deactivate tyre changes and fuel changes, my wheel's not the greatest for flicking through the menus while you're trying to sort of move the wheel. So I think I must have deselected it somehow. And then I think it was 7-minute repairs come up, which is then game over because there was only a couple of minutes left.
Well, a heartbreak ending, and still a small mistake there, but a critical one. Nonetheless, coming back to something positive, you may have lost out in terms of being the championship winner as a result of the tiniest of margins. A single point, but over the season, you've given us an absolute spectacle of racing, no doubt about it. I mean, if you had to walk away from this as your highlight or your positive highlights of the season, what would they be?
God, now you're asking. Probably the battle with Matt. We both pushed each other. I think, you can see where our pace was compared to even the pros. We were well within the pros. So I think we've just pushed each other to be quicker. And yeah, it's been really good. I'm quite pleased with how I raced for the season overall, and it's been by far my best ever championship that I've entered in 20 years. I think I've ever been anywhere near second place. So I'm just pleased with that, really.
Oh, 100%, and so you should. I mean, it's been superb, and to only lose out by such a small margin at the end, regardless of how you've lost out, is testament to how far you've come. I'm sure not just the DCW racing crew, but indeed everybody up and down the grid would agree with me on that. And I have to ask then, you may have come short this time, but surely you've got to be back on the grid for Season 15 of our GT3 Championship to right the wrongs and finally take that crown.
To be honest, I'm probably going to skip the next one, but I'm going to try and get another one done before the end of the year. So working nights is not the easiest thing, and I have to work weekends. So luckily it fell right with the amount of rounds that I could do. But yeah, I probably won't be in the next one, but I'll certainly join one again.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. I mean, no, you're going to be massively missed, even by your championship role, Matt Edmondson. I think that's going to make him frown a little bit in the fact he won't get to do battle with you again, but I'm sure we're going to see you in a future season, like you say, no doubt about it. Well, just before I do let you go, James, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, well, obviously, thank you to yourself for broadcasting it. Commentary's been amazing. Thank you to the UKSR and obviously DCW Racing for their help when I've needed it.
Well, James, we've got to give a big thank you to you as well for joining me for an interview this evening. Congratulations on your run-up spot in the championship. May not have been the ending you've wanted, but still, you've emerged from this season a very strong driver, no doubt about it. And we hope to see you on the grid again in the future to do battle, because I'm sure you're going to absolutely ace it. But with that, congratulations, and most importantly, have a great rest of your evening.
And you too. Thanks, Paul.
So hearing it there from James Foster, ladies and gentlemen, our number 84 McLaren driver. And, well, you can hear it in his voice. I think he is gradually coming to terms with what's happened. But, I mean, you would feel that way if it were you. I would feel the same if it were me. And the fact that the championship in the end slipped out of his hands right within the close. I mean, with 3 minutes remaining, you cannot make up stories like this. And even so, when he made his way back to the pits, not having the fast repair active when he had it available to him, and that in itself, all of it will feel like the biggest gut punch that you could ever feel. But, like we always say, the racing may not be real, but the emotions and the physicality that comes with it is most certainly real. But on the plus side, he has had a very strong season. He admitted there one of his finest, if not his finest performances in the best part of his 20 years or so of doing sim racing. And, well, the DCW racing driver has definitely come on leaps and bounds over the season, going toe-to-toe with a regular front Matt Edmondson. And the two have kept each other honest all the way throughout. And out of a GT3 AM class, which did see, if I remember correctly, 4 different winners in the opening 4 rounds, whereas Edmondson and Foster really emerged in the second half of the season as the big names, and Foster coming alive in the final 4 rounds. And that's the way it really did go in the end with regards to the fact that it all came down to the finest of margins, but what the cruelest of fine margins it could be here today. But in the end, he'll move forward from it, and he's going to be on the grid in the future season. Not for season 15 of GT3, sadly, but we'll definitely see him back, I reckon. And when we do, I'm sure he's going to have his another chance to have a run in the sun and bring home some championship glory. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the conclusion of our interviews. And we'd like to say a big thank you to all of our interviewees. Matt Edmondson, firstly, as he was none other than our championship winner in the GT3 AM class there, as we do get the highlight correct on screen. And we also like to say a big thank you to our LMP2 champion, James Ibram, for Effect Simulations Club Sport. We'd also like to say a thank you to our GTP third place driver in the championship, John Williams, for Effect Simulations. Not quite able to make it into an interview today, unfortunately, due to timing, but that's the way it does go. We are going to revamp the interviewing process for next season, I do believe, but still, we're very grateful to him volunteering his time, and we will try and get an interview with him when he's next on the grid. And we'd also like to say a thank you to our final interview of this evening. You've just heard from DCW Racing's GT3 AM Championship runner-up, and that was James Foster. Well done to them all on their performances today and throughout the entirety of the season, and a big thank you to them all for their time over the championship campaign. And indeed in the interview room this evening. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to begin to wrap up, and let's start off, of course, with those championship standings after 9 rounds. And provisionally, they start off like this. In the GTP class, it's Patrik Thomsen who has taken the crown with a round to spare effect. He wasn't on the grid for tonight. He didn't need to be, given the fact he'd sealed the deal at Spa-Francorchamps only a week ago, and this round being the second of his 2-drop scores. The Williams Sim Racing Academy driver really being a force of his own, and 6 wins to his name was enough to do the dance. And then Austin William Campbell finished second on 189 points, 13 ahead of John Williams in the end, who had to settle for third place. But he had plenty of points there to make sure that his run in the Effect Simulations team was not going to be thwarted by Empire Motorsports' Nathan Foster, who answered the question of who would finish fourth in the end, and he was the man to do so. Amittrajit Ghosh finishing fifth there, gradually coming on leaps and bounds over the championship season, ahead of Ryan Davies, with Andreas Nordenhof, Daryl Norkett, Joshua Wilson, and Matthew Sheraton completing the top 10. And a special mention there to Matthew Sheraton, not just the fantastic livery on the Aztec racing car, but also for taking his maiden win of the season today in Detroit, and with that finishing off the top 10. Reserve further 22 points to Joe Newman, head of Zander Hill by 3 points, a further point to Thomas Cope, and then Ryan Moles and Sam Sherwood completed the GTP standings. And then coming to the LMP2 class, well, there you can see, ladies and gentlemen, 4 points was the delta between James Ibram, who had the perfect score today for Effect Simulations Club Sport, and Øystein Herfjord for Effect Simulations Carbon. And well, what a championship battle between the two of them, but James coming out on top. Ben Cullen, third place down 169 points, just fending off the charge from Tom Farr, and the Effect Simulations team making it
a 1-2-3 with DDK Racing Team's driver there rounding off the top 4. A good, comfortable margin ahead of Emil Koopmans for Effect Simulations Club Sport, who finished 5th. Helder Gonçalves, he finished 6th for Tractix Racing. Unfortunately, we couldn't see him on the grid for at least one more round because his heroics and absolutely brilliant battles, we would love to see more of them and hope to see him in a future season. Ahead of Ryan Walker there by 10 points. And then Simon Bamber, Jarrett Lee and James Acklam completed your LMP2 top 10, with James Acklam being followed up by Justus Stachiokis in 11th and John Eddowes 12th there for Tiki Simsport. In the GT3 Pro class, well, here we can see Casper Brotler confirmed your champion, and in the end with that victory today as well, extending his victory by a further 17 points over Cy Anthony. The Dragon Razio driver finishing runner-up there versus Jack Barker for Made for Racing. Well done to the pair of them. What a battle for the second spot between them over the course of the season. Darren Sharples taking 4th. And he was the fastest man in both qualifying and also over the fastest lap, but couldn't quite seal the 1-2 with his teammate and having to settle for 4th place in the championship as a result. From the Old Dudes in Cars driver, it was Nathan Anstis in 5th for 156 points for UK Sim Racing Irvine, and then Sean Cranny Swash 6th there in a solid campaign from him, no doubt about it, for Ansi Sports, head of Eric Rozev, with Christian Maltrek, Tom Weston and Andy Archer completing the top 10, and outside the top 10, Andrew Fairley, Jack Osborne and Matthew Morris. Then lastly, coming on to the GT3 AM class, and here we can see Matt Edmondson, your winner by a single point over the distance, and what a way to take a single point advantage at the very end for UK Sim Racing Button over DCW Races James Foster. James Conley completed the top 3 there in the chase of the Jameses on 180 points, 2 ahead of Rob Windsor for UK Sim Racing Button versus UK Sim Racing Irvine, and then the Wrong Stuff's John Davies completing the top 5 there with a second place finish at the end, giving him the right to finish in the top 5. Well done to him. He's gone under the radar for most of the season, but let's make sure he's out there in the spotlight because he has been Mr. Consistent. Richard Jones taking 6th from him with that late retirement, demoted him from the top 5 right at the close of Slow and Steady Racing, not the way he wanted to end his campaign, with Simon Hartley in 7th ahead of Steve Hughes, and then Satinder Deanser and Alex Brown completing that top 10. Daniel Pace was 11th, Michael Myers 12th, and Shaminda Deanser with 0 points completing the G3 AM standings. But of course we have one other question. Who took the team's championship crown? Well, here we go. It's Effect Simulations Club Sport who took it in the end by a comfortable margin over Old Dudes in Cars, with a great last result there for them at Detroit today and securing the deal. Old Dudes in Cars having to settle for second place, but just ahead of UK Sim Racing Button by 13 points. Now Effect Simulations taking 4th ahead of their sister team Carbon, completing the top 5. On 314 points, only a point off the top 5 at UK Sim Racing Irvine in the end, with not enough points from today enabling them to overhaul Effect Simulations Carbon, and Ansi Sports meanwhile bringing up the rest of the field in 7th by a sizable gap to 6th, but only 1 point between them and Empire Motorsport. SAS Racing and DDK Racing Team completed the top 10, with DCW Racing in 11th ahead of Dragon Razio, and then Made for Racing, Olympus Esports and The Wrong Stuff completing your team standings top 15. And well done to all of our teams, but most of course importantly and a special well done to Effect Simulations Club Sport for being our team's championship champions. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, then it's time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the racing today, if you've enjoyed the entire season or a medley in between, well, all that and more, if you want to know more about the UK Sim Racing community, do check out our official website first and foremost, and that is uksimracing.co.uk, where if you go to our website, you can find out all the latest information of the goings-on and upcoming proceedings at UK Sim Racing, and how you can join the official UK Sim Racing community Discord. If you don't want to go to the website, but perhaps you're more of a social media person, well, you can always go on Twitter at twitter.com/UK Sim Racing _. Well, there you can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements from UK Sim Racing, including upcoming series and ongoing broadcasts. But we'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our title sponsor for this season, and that'll be the Virtual Racing School, and well, their web address being VRS.racing. And as for the Virtual Racing School, established in 2016, VRS aims to help sim racers get faster through the provision of top-tier software and hardware, which draws upon the knowledge and experience of both real-life racing drivers and sim racing professionals. A VRS subscription, extremely popular with sim racers around the world, provides an intuitive solution for combining data analysis and coaching, which may be used by racers at all levels to take their racing to the highest level. Meanwhile, a VRS Direct Force Pro wheelbase and pedal set offers the cutting edge in sim racing hardware, as used by more professional sim racers and real-life racing drivers than any other brand in the world, including Formula 1 sensation Oscar Piastri. So if you want to get faster, be sure to head to VRS.racing today to find out more. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that brings the curtain down then on Season 3 of the UK Sim Racing Multi-Class League here. What a season it has been. But fret not, because if you want to see plenty more racing, we've only got the best part of a couple of weeks before we are back on the grid once again, because the GT3 League will return for its 15th season, and that will all begin on Sunday the 22nd of June this 2025 calendar year. And well, as we talked about it earlier, let's remind you once again, for those who missed it, or if you just want a reminder, we have got plenty of racing to come in that. All GT3 class machines. There is a new GT3 tyre model on the way by the time this season gets underway, so that means we will be resetting the books for all of our drivers who have to get acquainted with a whole new tyre model of their GT3 machines, and we've also got plenty of new things to be occurring on the grid. Perhaps most notably, in addition to our 4 class championships and our teams championship, we have the introduction of the all-new UK Sim Racing Challenge Cup, which will be focused on the final 5 rounds of the championship. All the drivers, regardless of what class, will be eligible for it. They will score their points in class, and whoever has the most points in the final 5 rounds based on their class finisher positions, they will take home the UK Sim Racing Challenge Cup. All new to the grid, and I do believe a very innovative cup, and it's not very rarely, if not at all, done in any sim racing series, and that's why you'll definitely want to be on the grid for this one, if not tuning in. Now, speaking of tuning in, all rounds will be broadcasted via post-round broadcast, which will happen on the Monday after each and every race, but they'll be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls, and you will experience those over the course of this season of the Multiclass League. So fret not, I'll be back in the commentary booth to bring you all the racing action as it unfolds, or as close as possible to as it unfolds in those post-round broadcasts every Monday, and we've got cash prizes up for grabs there for all of our entrants, and what a season ahead it's going to be. So if you want to be on the grid, with £18.50 for entry, and definitely your money is going towards that cash prize pool, and also fantastic stewarding and fantastic organisation. Indeed, it has been a fantastic season of organisation here at the UK Sim Racing community. And I'd like to say a big thank you to all of our organisers within the community, all of our admins and staff members giving their tireless time. Also to Ryan Walker for his fantastic photography with respect to this season. I'm sure he's going to be back for season 15 of the GT3 League. Well, you won't want to miss it, ladies and gentlemen. But with that, we have brought the curtain down. It has been a fantastic season of racing here in the Multiclass League. And well, without further ado, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.